Hey, everybody, it's Corey Poirier and Elise Rothman, my co-host here with the Blue Talks presents Flip Your Script Experience Live. One of the things I've done this week, which is really rare, is I've used the same background for the whole week, other than one day whenever I wasn't in as much and Elise was helping and taking over for me a bit. So I didn't use any of the other backdrops, which is really weird, but it's the end of the week now, so I can't change that. And also,
well, I've used the same backdrop too, though.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I never even thought of that. I usually try to mix it up every day, but I didn't bother this week. And then this will probably come off at some point because it'll get too warm for it. So it's been a unique week, and it's been an awesome week. And I'm super stoked for today as well. The last but not least, as we always like to say, before I forget
the finale.
The finale.
It's
Absolutely.
the finale. Wait, Corey, let me ask you this. Am I coming across okay? Because you're breaking up a little on my end, so I'm not sure whose side that's on.
You're coming across okay on my side.
Okay.
I'm coming across to myself okay on my side, so I don't know. I am not seeing it, as I guess what I'm saying.
Well, we'll ask the public.
Yes.
Let us know.
Yes, absolutely. Can you see?
Let us know if we're breaking up. You know, it's hard to see because I'm fine on my end too.
Yeah, everything seems fine.
Sveta said we look great and sound great. So really, that's all that matters.
Okay, sounds perfect. So one thing I want to mention off the top is, because as soon as we jump in, I get sometimes carried away and forget to mention these things. So just the housekeeping, Blue Talks, and we usually talk at the end about how people can learn more about Flip Your Script. We'll probably talk about it at some point throughout. But Blue Talks, just quickly for people that want to know how they can learn more, how they might be able to find themselves on a Blue Talk stage or platform. It's easy. It's bluetalks.com. And to make it easy, it's BLU, but the easy part of that is we have a logo on the screen that shows you how it's spelled. BLU, and then just add the talks.com. And if you go there, you'll find out about the YouTube channel. You'll find out about the podcast, the book series. And soon we're going to add the virtual event link. So you know each time when these coming up, I'm going to get that more in tune. So there's schedules up and all that kind of stuff. We will work on that. Also, we talked about some giveaways. I happen to have these two books here that I said I'm going to give away 5.
I got a book. I didn't bring my book to show. Oh, well.
We'll get it next time. But 5 of this, 3 of these. What we're going to do is for anybody that comments, even if you don't realize you're supposed to comment.
And 3 of the I Already Am children's books as well.
Yeah, so 3 of Elisa's I Already Am children's books. And then I put the full title of it yesterday, but I do have it right when I say Midlife Mojo. So Frankie Picasso's Midlife Mojo, she was nice enough to offer up a copy as well. I think it works out to 12 books. So that means from people that commented, at least 12 of those people, and I'll do a live draw like I did last time, we'll get a free book sent to them. Me paying for the shipping of the book, you literally just have to receive it. And so I wanted to mention that. And then the last part for me for housekeeping is share. You're watching this now. Please share, comment, share, tell us what you're taking from this, ask questions. Yesterday, there were a lot of comments. We didn't tackle the comments as much. I'll try to do better on that today, but everybody was having the comments, like you guys were having discussions, like I know you were with people.
Yes.
Elizabeth Hughes was, like, people were having discussions, but I didn't bring them up onto the screen. So I'll try to do that today. If there's questions, I always make sure I bring them up on the screen. So
hey, Corey,
I
have a question for you. Yeah. While you're on the topic of bluetalks.com. So this is our 3rd event, right? All about flipping your script. And what I love that has come up out of this whole week, we talked about changing your thoughts and changing your life. But what we're really seeing here is that, are you waiting or are you creating? So we're helping people flip their script from waiting to creating. It's like a whole new way of becoming a well-being, right? There's so many ways to kind of look at this. But we have all of these incredible interviews. Is there going to be a link where somebody can go and either purchase the entire 3, let's call them 3 seasons, if we want to, or 3 chapters of the 3 weeks of these incredible interviews? If they, I know right now they're hanging out in the archives of the Blue Talks Flip Your Script group for now. They're not going to be there forever. But once we bundle them, will there be a bundle that somebody can actually pick up and watch, kind of like a binge?
Yeah, so there's a multiple part answer to that. The one that, and you and I probably still need to have this conversation as far as doing them as a bundle or being able to grab and access the recordings that way. But there are some easy answers to that. So for instance, and I mentioned this recently, and this is kind of an announcement, I guess I didn't say this whole week, but we took the Blue Talks brand to some degree, where we're taking it over to what's called C-Suite, the C-Suite network. And just so people, I mean, I don't want to go too far into that whole side of things, meaning to explaining what C-Suite is, but it is a network that hosts podcasts and also the video side of things. And so we are bringing Blue Talks over to C-Suite, also to Connect TV. And Connect TV is the network that Jay Shetty is on, Shaman Durek, Tom Bilyeu. So really happening LA-based network. And so bringing it over to those two also means we're bringing it to United Airlines on the in-flight service, Apple TV, Amazon, Roku, Opera TV, and more. We'll just say etc. It also means that it's going to be available if they pick it up, but it'll be available in up to 900,000, it's not a fake number, hotel rooms across North America. Rooms in the hotels on the TV system, if it's a smart TV. So having said all that, my answer is this. Well,
that's really exciting. Hello. Yay.
Absolutely it is. And so some of it will air in there, and Connect TV is a subscription-based service. There's parts of it I can make available for free, but it's a subscription-based service. C-Suite is a free service. All you have to do is download the app in either of those cases. But the other side, this goes back to your point, is we may make some available on YouTube so that people can get a feel for it, especially when the replays are gone. The other part, which is what I want to mention, and I'm not doing a plug for this, we're still a few months away, but I'm launching a thing called the Influencers Vault. And within the Influencers Vault,
Influencers Vault?
Yeah, the Influencer Vault. And we're launching that in the new year. And in there, I'm probably going to have a section under Blue Talks where people can access it there. But that's going to be a member service. So again, that's not a free option. So there may be a scenario that you and I can chat about where people want to just buy the recordings, that they can just do that. And then I can host it on my Teachable site. Just for a heads up, that's what we've done with the Amplify Your Message, the other event that we run in the month. We set it up with people can access VIP, and then if they do, then we set them up inside the Teachable, and then they just use their password and they log in and they access all the recordings. So I'm open to that.
So I think that right here live in front of everyone, I want to make a suggestion that we make all the replays available for free, at least on the Blue Talks Flip Your Script virtual stage until the end of the year.
Okay.
So if you want to catch them, go to the archives, go to the videos, check them out. Most of the days have the contact information for each of the speakers in the comments. If you want to reach out and connect, do it now, right? So from now to the end of the year, it's free. We'll leave them there. And then we'll let you know what we decide to do. How does that 100%. Sound?
Sounds perfect to me. And yes, okay. And to that point, at least why I haven't gotten rid of, why I haven't taken them down is because I hadn't made any decision, and I thought I'm just going to leave them up there. I'm not going to brag about that they're up there, and I'm happy to do that, but I was just like, I'll just leave them up there, and people will see, oh, it's still up. But we never promised we would leave them up, so now there's a commitment that we're promising.
And the same with the Flip Your Script Fridays. I'm going to leave them up. Great half hours, juicy nuggets, incredible opportunities to plant these seeds of who you want to be, as opposed to maybe who you are feeling stuck in being right now. So I'll leave them up too until the end of the year, and even the new ones that come, we'll leave them to the end of the year, and then we'll take all of the Flip Your Script interviews, shows, episodes that have been on the stage, this virtual stage, and we're going to do something juicy with them. But there 100%. Probably won't be free. It won't be free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so let's you and I will work on that in the behind the scenes. But yes, love that idea. So having said that, speaking of juicy conversations, I think it might be perfect timing to bring on our guest, if that works okay for you.
Juicy guest.
Yes, absolutely. And so let me bring her onto the screen. So Sveta Silverman, so super stoked to have you here. And Sveta, I know you and Elise had a chance for just a second to introduce yourselves to one another. So feel free to. And then also, Sveta, I always get our guests to do a little bit of an introduction about themselves, and then we dive deeper. So I'll let you guys say hi. And then if you want to tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hello again, beautiful.
Hi, Elise. And guys, I am so honored and so grateful. And I am a juicy guest. Awesome.
Yeah, super juicy, sassy. And I know that you have exciting news to share with everyone. Today is a day to celebrate, right?
Well, today there are like two. I believe that being a guest on Blue Talks is huge because your network is. I mean, we are spreading the message. In fact, let's say I'm going to be spreading the message of health. It's interesting. You're teaching flipping the script. I'm teaching flipping the cellular switch.
It's all tied in. The reason we flip our script is so the cells can regenerate themselves.
Absolutely. You cannot flip the script if your switch is unhealthy. And that's what because everything is intertwined and absolutely and incredibly interconnected. And I keep flipping my switch on my expandable desk. I don't sit. I have an ergonomic desk because, as they say, sitting is the second smoking these days.
Well, I'm sitting, but I'm bouncing.
There you go.
So can you tell us a little bit about who you are? Because your background is incredibly impressive. And I know that you have had many careers on your journey towards your new launch, which I'd love for you to share as well. But can you tell us a little bit about where you've come from and how you've flipped your script or flipped your switch to be where you are now and share the message that you're sharing?
Well, thank you again. So obviously, guys, you hear my accent. So I am the immigrant from the former CCCP. And some of you, not Corey, but maybe Lise, you guys are young enough to remember the 1973 hockey series, CCCP, USSR. So I'm a very proud Russian/Jewish Canadian. And I left Soviet Union basically on the brink of 1990, Christmas of 1989. And if you may say there were many careers, considering my second career in Canada as washing the floors at the Fantasyland Hotel. But it's usually...
That I didn't know.
So now you do. $5.75 an hour. So, but usually it's actually per se, it's a maturity to one mission. If you call it career, it's a career. It's a mission to help people. Basically, it's a mission to be a healer. So it all started, I am a former pediatric surgeon in the Soviet Union, practiced for about 2.5 years till I immigrated. I basically ran away because I needed to run away. And I left a very comfortable life by Russian standards and a very affluent family because I just wanted freedom. I just wanted me to be me. So always inspired by my parents, always inspired by my mother. My mother is an incremental part of my soul and my journey. She was a healer on this earth. She entered the room and the room lit up and people were instantly feeling better. And I didn't understand this. But hopefully now I'm kind of inheriting those vibes. So I came to Canada, yes, lost all the credentials, and I was washing hotels.
Yeah, amazing, right? So
it's great. It's great on your muscles. It's not particularly exciting on your mental things. And then again, by the virtue of the universe, I was hired as a part-time instructor to teach anatomy and histology. How did that happen? I have no idea. Miracle. However, that went to another thing, and it's interesting. Here in Canada, actually, I could teach in medical school, but I couldn't practice. So that's interesting. I could spoil their brains, the medical students' brains, but absolutely no rights to practice medicine. So I was at the 4-way sign what to do with my life. And I knew that I am going to go back to school. So whether I'm going to back to school into something I know to do, like medicine, or to do something else. And I was so inspired actually by my students, of all people, but mostly by my husband, who was pushing me through and through to get back into medical school. Yes, I went back into medical school from day one. I am fully retrained. I speak with an accent, think like a Western physician and a whole lot more. That's another story. So graduated in the year 2000, and I absolutely cognitively chose to practice pathology. Because I actually didn't, as an ex-surgeon, I wanted to be very close to the operating room. But per se, I didn't want to be in the operating room because it's a night job. At my age of graduation, I really wanted to sleep at home as opposed to sleep, or maybe not to sleep in the hospital. So I chose to practice pathology. I diagnose diseases. And since graduation, I specialize in breast cancer. I'm a breast cancer pathologist. So I diagnose bad cells. And I am very close to the operating room. I call pathology parasurgical discipline. So I'm in a very close contact with all my practicing, very handy physicians. And maybe I don't, what's that?
I said amazing. I have my mind is like, I have some, normally I'm not the question asker. I'm like, where are you from? How many kids do you have? Like, and Corey's the one that comes up with
like, people are asking me, how many kids do I have? And I keep telling people the whole world are my children.
Right.
Because of the message. And my message, yes, listen, I diagnose cancers. It's a power. I'm a very powerful physician. In terms of, upon my diagnosis, the patient is going to be treated, and the patient may be embarking into what is called cytotoxic therapy of a chemotherapy and stuff. And to give someone a C diagnosis, that's what I'm teaching. When you're not aware of the C and stuff, you're mortified. It's like, okay, let's plan the funeral. No, let's don't. Let's get
right to me.
Journey. It's the beginning of the journey.
It's a beginning. It's a message. It's letting you. So we spoke yesterday with Dr. Elizabeth Hughes about the emotional component of cancer per se. Actually, we had this conversation. So I'm so curious to know what your perspective is. So I work on the what I call the emotional root, right? The emotion that has been sitting and causing this. I call it emotional plaque buildup, and then it manifests somewhere in the body as a disease. So I have a definition and an understanding of a certain archetype of somebody who gets who breast cancer manifests in their being, right? So I'm so curious about your perspective and if there's a common thread in how people feel about themselves and the way that they're thinking. And breast cancer, like if there's a tie-in to the mind science sort of physical manifestation and how you see that.
Well, thank you, Liz, and you're opening a huge can of worms because everybody has.
I usually do.
Everybody has a personal story with cancer. Mm-hmm. So my story with cancer again started with my mom, who was diagnosed with multiple cancers in 2004, and her breast cancer was a red herring. But that red herring, to me, led to such an enormous amount of stress that actually blew her very smoldering, very long-going, indolent, what is called lymphoma, into absolutely mortal, very aggressive spill into the whole body. And that's when I've discovered that I can't do anything. My conventional medicine is not helping. It's there, but I need more. I'm crossed, and I still learn. I'm a perpetual student. The more I know, the more I'm confused. The more I know, the less I know. The more I learn, the less I know. And my idea is, that's a whole thing. I want to align the mechanism of the cells to the everything that is around us. Inside, because we are born as a perfect cellular machine. In fact, we are, I call ourselves a lump of cells. We are a lump of, let's say, some say 30 plus trillion, some say 40 plus trillion. We are a lump of a lot of cells. And a cell is a machinery. It's like a very, very complicated car. And when we're born or when it's a new car, everything works perfect. So how do we preserve that normality through everything we put in our life? So that is why when you say, absolutely, breast cancer is lined up with emotions. Not only with emotions, some studies that the breast cancer in the right breast is aligned to this type of emotions, and the breast cancer in the left breast is aligned to those kind of emotions. But how do we unravel the pattern? You know, what I teach is, I love to teach integrative medicine, or what is called personalized medicine. Everything that helps this patient. Number one, we need to be personal. How many of us physicians are actually connect with somebody that is sitting across? We connect like this. How are you doing? Okay, good. How is it about this? Connection and love. Medicine by Hippocrates started with love. And let food be thou medicine, and medicine be thou food. But there is a whole lot more, because now we're so advanced. We do have genetic tests, and we have epigenetic tests, which is what do we actually do with our genes? Because our genes is like a software. So you do this on your genes, and that's how they're going to be activated.
Absolutely.
And some of us actually know that. Mr. Corey Poirier, he knows that on his own example. When he does right things, everything is awesome. So, but the thing is, number one, okay, you can do, I usually call it pillars of health. And guess what?
Pillars of health?
Pillars of health. And I never call food, not anymore, as a pillar of health number one.
I got to tell you, neither did Dr. Elizabeth Hughes. Do you know each other? We need to put you two together.
You absolutely do. Hello, what's wrong with you?
No, nothing. I'm getting it. I'm letting you know right now. If you don't know her, you need to know her, because you're speaking the same language.
The tribe. We need to build that tribe. And
I'm in, girl. We're building it right now.
Yeah, when I started my journey, it's all an evolution. It actually started with foods. I didn't know any better.
Right.
And I thought foods is end all and be all. With medicine, medicine is needed when it's needed. But to bring every one of us to health, to the root causes, I need to look into myself. You need to look into yourself. And that's where that empowerment comes from. I need to teach you to get back to the best of you and believe in you. I want you and every one of us to be in charge of that body.
Yep.
And of course,
I'm with you, girl.
Everybody else, all the doctors and everybody, that's a support team with a huge knowledge and stuff, but those are very educated advisors. And we stop taking responsibilities. Doctor, what pill should I take? No, you need to make those hard decisions. So number one in my pillars of health is not food. It's this. It's the mind. It's the emotions. It's our spirituality. We are all stressed right now. And if you tell me I'm not stressed, you're lying. And we're always stressed because that's the life we're getting in. So that stress needs to be, what do I do? How do I start my day? Do I start with pray? Or if you don't pray, do I start with meditation? Do I start just with quiet and acknowledgement? My cat is on my chest, and I'm so grateful because she's grounding me. So she's making me little things. She makes me happy. What makes us happy? That's the foundation.
Absolutely.
Some say start 17 seconds. So you stress, everything is better. You stress, there you go. You stress, everything is better in your mind. Switch it 16, 17 seconds, something that you absolutely know. is going to be happy. See what's going to happen in 17 seconds.
I try to break it down. I try to break it down for my clients, and I say all you really need to do is find one better feeling thought. It doesn't even matter what that thought is. One better feeling thought to flip your script and shift the focus there, and that will then take your attention in that direction.
Because your cells, again, it's a software. Your cells
and the hard drive.
Your cells are followers. They follow you. And everything about us is energy, whether we like it or not. It's electricity and energy. It's all about plus, minus, plus, minus. And plus, minus, plus, minus, it's up to me where to bring it. Because if it's in a lot of minuses, that's a lot of negativity. And that is going to convert into cellular physicality. So
manifestation of disease.
Biology of cellular. So that is a dis-ease. Dis-ease. So then, for example, from that mind, and that, I don't know how you cheat on a cheat. Lock yourself in a room and just laugh for 5 minutes. That's it. Fake it till you make it. And then we're going into the foundation of number 2, pillar number 2. We're going to talk food. And it's very simple. It has to be nutrient-dense foods. Per se, I'm not preaching organic, but I'm preaching no boxes. Right. No boxes. Something that you read you got to be responsible for the list of ingredients. So you take this box and you start reading that whole page. You can't even pronounce 3/4 of these names. Put it back. Does it matter whether it's on sale? Was it the most?
I love that you say that, because it's kind of a without exception thing. Without exception, like gravity.
It's on clearance. I need to get it. It's on sale.
Right. Sorry, gravity doesn't work that way either.
No,
if you jump out of a plane, you need a parachute.
Yeah, this is for sale and clearance. The body and the food is not for sale and clearance. It's for the highest quality. Garbage in, garbage out. So, and then it's the same thing. It's like, go back to your grandparents. Go back to your ancestors. It's very simple. I'm not teaching you veganism. But what I'm teaching you is healthy foods.
Right.
Healthy foods. However, let's say with cancer, it's more details. It's another story. But for normal people, you actually need to know what you're eating. Because your apple juice has nothing to do with apple juice to begin with.
It's apple drink. Half of it is apple drink.
I don't even know whether there are apples on the list of ingredients. It may simulate something. That's a whole thing. If you want apples, which are absolutely incredibly nutritious, the thing is, when you use your apples, it's a lot of sweetness. We need to slow down on the sugary thing. But if you want your apples, people say, oh, I can't afford organic. Don't afford organic. You can't afford apples. What is cheaper than apples? Oranges? And both of them, let's say apples preferably organic, but not. That's fine. You take your apple, you wash your apple, you rinse your apple. How many of us have simple household vinegar in the cupboards? Everybody. Well, this is your best rinser. You don't need to go for anything fancy. So you rinse the fruit, then you rinse that thing, and guess what's the healthiest on the apple or in the apple? Is the peel. Because the peel of the apple is going to feed, the flesh of the apple feeds everything, it's yum yum. But the peel of the apple not only is going to feed everything, but it feeds your gut and it feeds your microgut. And we are nothing without microgut. That's a thing. We're the nation or the population of a very unhealthy gut and unhealthy microgut.
And the mind-gut connection is huge.
There's a mind-gut connection. Nothing you can. This is bona fide science. Whether I am a conventional doctor, whether I'm a quack, whether I am a holistic doctor, whether I'm a holistic health practitioner, that's just the way it is. That's the way it is.
Right.
So
it doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not.
This is the way it is.
But it does matter. But it does matter what you believe. So there's a catch-22.
Exactly why the lifespan is going down. You know why? it's like, yeah, I started taking charge of my existence and my health and my genes because my great grandmother passed away at 86. My grandmother passed away at 78. And my mother passed away at 73. And so I need to take care of my genes and my body before I need to go and get a pill. That's a thing. The best cure of the disease is the disease prevention. So that's what we're teaching. I'm teaching the anticipatory. This is the prospective, not a retrospective. And it is so simple because, okay, you can make a chicken soup. You can eat your eggs, and eggs are so nutritious and delicious. And that fat is an amazing fat. However, let's also take care of our animals. Let's eat free-range eggs. Let's eat clean eggs with amazing, clean orange yolks, full of goodness, because that fat is going to give something incredibly important for the brain. The brain doesn't function without. The foundation is not your supplements. The foundation is not your vitamins. The British call them vitamins. We call them vitamins. But it's a food. It's a macro food. It's a proteins, carbs, and fat, and we need to make the best out of it. And then we're going into exercise and hydration. We need to pin ourselves to daily exercise without New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolution, I'm going to the gym for how long? 3 days. And you don't, your exercise is normal exercise. Walk around the block. Walk around with your dog. Just walk up and down the stairs. You don't need to push 200 pounds of steel. You need to do regular exercise. You need to move. You need to move, and you need to stay hydrated. And when I'm talking stay hydrated, I don't mean drink Coca-Cola. Some of them like soft drinks. Some of us do not like soft drinks.
I'm drinking water with chlorophyll in it.
There you go. And I'm drinking
chlorooxygen or something it's called.
There you go. So I'm drinking my own. And as you see, it's in the glass container. Because
that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing because it's a toxicants. Everything is about that health. Now you gotta stay hydrated. And guys, coffee is not your hydration, it's your yum. It may be your boost. But coffee is not your hydration. Hydration is your clean water. Clean water. I am not a proponent of tap water. Find your ways to clean water, whatever your wallet allows. If it allows filtering, filter. If it allows going and buying mineral water there are stores that bring spring water. If you can afford reverse osmosis, go for it. If you can afford different systems like Berkey, go for it. Whatever knocks your fancy. But you need to stay hydrated.
So, sorry to jump in. I have a question because you just mentioned on the Berkey. I want to ask you something about that.
I have a Berkey.
But also I want to ask you, I want to mention something and then I want to ask you a question on this one area. But as far as the organic thing, somebody said this to me one time. I thought it was so wise, and I just want to put it out there. Actually, I'll give her a shout out. Her name is Lil McPherson, Lil McPherson. She runs what's called the Wooden Monkey in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is a farm-to-table type 2 restaurants. And she told me basically, I said, like, do you ever drink beer? She goes, of course I do. She said, I work based on a 90-10 rule. And she said, I figure if I'm only bad 10% of the time, the 90 will take care of itself. But one thing she said to me, she said, I think it's really bad that we've gone out of our way to name the food that actually is the best of foods. That was the original food we started with, organic. Because she said we've made it sound like it's a bad thing and it's actually the new thing that was created, when in fact it's just food. Everything else is not organic. Like, so what you're saying is like, because I brought up that I saw somebody pick up a bananas in a food store and she went, ooh, organic, and threw it back. And I said it to her and she said, that's the problem. We've made people think organic is something different. And she said, when in fact, it's supposed to be the closest to what we used to eat in the first place, natural food. So why do we give it this name organic? We've given all these negative stigmas towards it, like it costs more and all this. But anyway, that's a side note. But I want to ask you about the Berkey, because I don't think it was you that told me about it. Somebody else did, and I went and researched it, and I was looking to buy one, and all the reviews I read, that's not true, not all, but a lot of the reviews I read said people had done tests on it, and the Berkey was just basically just a product that people got sold on like everything else, and that the quality of the water wasn't any better. And then they gave the example of what they tested that was better. And even one was showed a picture of their lab where they tested it and all that kind of stuff. And so I just wanted to get your take on, not necessarily Berkey, I'm not trying to knock them because I have no idea. I don't even know enough about them. But how, as humans, how as people, do we make sure, like, because if we read a new magazine or go online, every second day something is the brand new shiny object. How do we as average humans know what really is good and what isn't good and what's been tested and all that? How do we make decisions?
Well, that's
a big question.
That's $1 million question.
Well, we're here for the big question.
Let me start with organic.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, organic is different from organic. So here's the deal. I'm a huge proponent of local, and I'm a huge supporter of local farms. And I know my farms. And some of my farms do not have a label certified organic because it costs them a lot of money. And it means basically not much. I know my farmers. I know their soil. I know their honesty. I know their integrity. I know what they grow. I really don't care for the label of organicity with people I know, and I go to my farmer's market. And there is no rhyme or reason for them to lie to me. I asked them, do you spray? They said, yeah, we're not certified organic. They show me the spray, the human grade or something like that, which is absolutely natural. And then he sprays it in his mouth. He said, that's how safe it is. But not only I'm supporting them, but I'm getting their produce that was in the ground or in their farm yesterday, as opposed to I'm going to whatever superstore or something, and I'm looking at organic tomatoes from Mexico, love Mexico, but from Mexico. Where were they picked? When were they picked? They were never picked at the ripe stage. So that organic is completely different. Plus, the FDA and USDA rules of organicity doesn't mean that they're not sprayed. So organic is different from organic. That's what I'm saying. You need to eat nutrient-dense foods. For example, free range, yeah, like game. You're not going to put certified organic on game, but this is certified organic because it was running. Now it's not running anymore. So these kind of things. Again, and for example, Berkey, I haven't done research. Let's say my type of a research on Berkey. What you're reading from Google doesn't necessarily mean good and right, because people who write bad review, people need to understand this. People go on Google, find the first article, and it's negative. It's a blog. It's a blog. It has no scientific validation. And those bloggers are getting paid. Some of them are on the clicks, and they're getting paid specifically on negative reviews. So you're benefiting somebody's and denying somebody's well-being. What I will tell you about Berkey. So here,
I should just clarify too, because just so you don't go too far in that direction, I'll just tell you where I read the reviews was on Amazon and on Yelp. I just want to let you know it was just people on Amazon talking about their experience. Now, again, I'm not saying they're right or they're not making up.
Yeah, so here's the deal. So obviously, for example, if somebody is asking me to review as an MD, so I'm going to go into my search engine, and that is not going to be Wikipedia, and that is not going to be Google Academy.
Right.
I'm going to go into PubMed.gov or National Institute of Health database. That's basically where I do that's my search engine. There are other search engines, but I'm not a computer, like genius, so it's easy peasy. However, I also have mentors who I trust. I just trust. I trust my mentors. For example, Corey, you are my network social media mentor. I trust you because you've proven it. You have never failed me. You always were on my side. You helped me. You're rising me from ashes. So same thing with, let's say, my health gurus, health mentors. If my mentor drinks Berkey, good enough. Is Berkey has pluses, minuses? Yeah, because there's only one water per se that is absolutely awesome. And this is the spring water out of this source that I come and I get my beaker on my cup, on my bottle, and I bottled it. That's the water. How many of us have that luxury?
Almost that many.
So that's the cleanest water. Per se, I go and buy bottled water. I have no clue what are they pouring in that bottle. I simply don't, because I'm a skeptic. Mm-hmm. I know what's coming out of my reverse osmosis spigot. That's I do, because I do have reverse osmosis. And again, one of my health mentors and other health mentors, they say, drink Berkey. Okay, if you can afford it, go for it.
Well, and to that point, we have reverse osmosis in our place too. So I'm asking more from a perspective of, I just wanted to get your take on it because, again, I looked into it because I was thinking maybe for my office or something. But I just, again, it's one of those things, as you know, you can read 100 good reviews somewhere and then you can read.
And then, for example, what I wanted to say, bananas. So there is a list which is called Dirty Dozen. You just go online and just Google Dirty Dozen fruits and vegetables. And it will tell you what you need to eat organic, what you need to eat non-organic. Bananas, you don't need to eat organic, period. And then you really need to be very careful because, as I say, organic doesn't mean 100% clean. And organic also doesn't mean 100% fresh. So if I go to the farmer's market and I see my vendors with amazing fruits and vegetables that were picked like in a week, that's a thing, like organic becomes very secondary to me. The most important thing for me to know where it's coming from and how much love is in it. Oh, we lost Elise?
Yeah, she had to jump off. She's going to jump back on here. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And I mean, I go to the farmer's market. I don't always drink, I'll say it this way. The most I drink besides water is usually once a week, I'll have one of these of chocolate milk, but I don't drink anything other than water. And I go to the farmer's market and I do all those things, but I also, it's so easy to get confused with something new that comes out that everybody says, you need to get this right now. And if you don't get this, you're not going to be well anymore. And
and the industry of supplements and vitamins and probiotics and healthy drinks, it is entirely overwhelming for everyone. It is simply overwhelming. So, I mean, that's where, per se, identifying your people and identifying your tribe. Who do you trust in a health world? Who can I ask? Who can review this stuff? Because people tell me, oh, I'm going to do the research. No, you're not. You don't have time and you're going to be bored. So it's like, it's not necessarily me, but there are people that's how we build health. We ask questions. You educate, you ask questions, and you get better. And you develop those recognition, those skills.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And like I said, I see Elise is here. Elise is here as well. But yeah, so I love that. I mean, like I said, it's just more of a question around the idea that it's always such a struggle for everybody to know who to listen to, what's right, what's wrong, what magazine should I buy? When I buy that magazine, it says this. The next magazine I buy says, don't do that. That's the worst thing you can ever do. The news says, coming up at 5, what you shouldn't eat ever in your life. And this is like, you're just in the middle of eating, and you're like, well, oh my God, what do I eat? Why don't you tell me now? This is 2:00 in the afternoon. And so we don't know where to go or what to listen to as average people.
Well, that's why, thank you. That's why you are bringing, and Elise, you're bringing, well, at least some doctors that maybe a little bit ahead of, the tribe. And as I said, it's absolutely overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and it's, for example, I call myself, I don't jump on and off the bandwagon, not to break my legs. So there are things that it's like, I do one job, it's like I stick with some supplements, but health is health is health. The more I learn, the more I question. And the more I question, exactly, it gets more confusing, but it gets more clear. So I absolutely know that everyone has to be on vitamin D. That's it. It just there's no discussion about it, especially in Canada. There's like it's like period, like no questions. You need to find the best product. Or, for example, you got to be on probiotics. It's just the way it is, because the soil, the earth is depleting. The earth is suffering. So organic, not organic, the soil is not the same, and we're not resting the soil. So the crop we're getting, the fruits we're harvesting, they're not the same. So the nutritional composition is not the same, and we do need those. So people tell me, "Oh, I eat well, I don't need vitamins." Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do, because you're not getting enough. But you also need to know what kind of vitamins, and do you need some and you don't need the others. So everybody's gut is sick. Everybody's gut has holes and has it has a leaky gut. Every one of us has a leaky gut. Just because what we're eating and how we're thinking, that's just the way it is. That's the biology of the cell. So if we have a leaky gut, we have microgut deficiency. So our probiotics are not 100% functional. So we need to boost it. Supplements are not substitutes. They are
I like that.
They are supplementing, they're not substituting. So you cannot pop the pill and avoid healthy lifestyle and good nutrition and exercise and hydration and happiness. And happiness. What is the most I'm missing right now is this.
I wanted to tell you something. I jumped off for a few minutes. Did we talk about your new website?
You bet, absolutely. Yeah. I'm so excited. I'm stoked about it.
Okay, well, tell us before we have to go, because it's really, really relevant to everything, and I have a question about it. So go ahead, girl.
I'm a hugger.
Tell us.
I'm a hugger. Let's put it this way. And what this social distancing and blah, blah, blah took away from me, I'm a hugger. And it just happened to be
I'm going to give you a tip before we leave. And I know my
every hug to me, it's like a message from my mom. It's a hug. I love hugging people. And there are so many papers on hugs and health. Fine. Now, everything about me is health. So to me, we just launched yesterday. Well, today I haven't even posted, but it's live. There is a website that is called Hugs with Sveta.
Can you put that in, Corey?
Hugs with Sveta. Now, hugs. What does it stand for? H is happiness and health. U is unlimited. G is gratitude. And S is success. So this is Hugs with Sveta. And guys, I am very transparent. This is who I am. This is who I am. The most to me is how many lives can I change? How many lives can I empower so tomorrow is better than today? And then they are going to do the same thing. It's like this. It's like a terrain. So Hugs with Sveta, there are blogs of me writing the blogs. There are blogs with interview with people who are on absolute verge of medicine, like Dr. Bob Miller, like Dr. Kiran Krishnan. And, I'm advertising the courses, like, on Sunday, join me. Zoom, free, Facebook Live, yoga, chair yoga. So it's for everyone. So it's not power yoga. It's not flow yoga. I'm not going to give you Bikram yoga. It is breathing and stretching and connecting, because prana or breathing is life. So, and this is free. So that is going to be, so whatever events are happening, it's on my Facebook. And slowly but surely, I will start posting my book. I'm writing a book.
Awesome. Well, Sveta, Silverman, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'll call it to be continued because I know we could chat forever on the subject, and we barely scratched the surface. But we also have the next guest in the backstage area, so I want to make sure we get everybody on today. Thank you, Sveta. Always feel the same. Thank you for being you, and we'll send you to the backstage for now. Send you off today, but as you know, it's a to be continued.
Thank you so much, Corey and Elise. Thank you, guys. Gratitude.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
You too, buddy.
And so we're going to bring on our next guest right away. I know Elise is trying to get back on here, but I'm going to bring on our next guest, Dr. Candice Staniek. And Candice, it's so great to have you here today. It's pretty cool because yesterday, I think we finished off, we had a doctor or two at the end, and we're totally in the medical realm. It seems like the last 2 days, which is pretty cool. So I guess, where I'd like to start is, can you tell us, and I always start this way because I feel it's better than me reading a bio, that's just me sitting there reading. So can you tell us just a little bit about yourself? And you don't have to worry about how deep you have to go because we're going to dive in deeper anyway. So can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. So this is awesome. So a little bit about myself. I am pretty eclectic. I bring a lot of things into what I do. It's not really the traditional naturopathic approach. So I call myself the freestyle naturopathic doctor. So I do marry both the science and the spirituality together. So oftentimes when I'm looking at things, I am approaching it from multiple different perspectives, understanding that we have physical, mental, emotional, spiritual aspects that could be interplaying all together. So that's a little bit about me. I enjoy dancing, and some people can see that on TikTok because I have educational dancing videos on TikTok. So that's kind of a newest thing that I've been doing. Spirituality, I guess, would kind of be the underground of what I'm looking at when I'm working with patients. It's not the forefront, but it really does kind of bring together the integral approach. So all the pieces together in one spot. Wow.
I love that. And I love the TikTok integrating dance and wellness. I haven't seen that yet. So now you've got me intrigued. I have to go check that out. That's so cool.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun for sure.
Well, and it's interesting when you say that as well, because with your, when we put together your flyer, your title, which I thought was super cool, is Freestyle Naturopathic Doctor.
Yeah.
And that's something you don't hear every day either. And so it feels like, and we can talk and dive into this, but it feels like you're trying to, in some ways, change up what we maybe view as the medical field as a whole. Just like, because there's some people that still probably view the medical field as this is exactly how it works. If something goes wrong, you have to go to your doctor. If the doctor says you take this, you have to take it. If the doctor says, I hate to say this because I have a family member going through this, you have this much time to live in your head, then maybe you go, oh, like that much time to live. That's it. There's no other options. And so, it seems like you're trying to help us change this pattern of what we think medical has to be, just like what we've always believed the school system has to be. It seems like as a freestyle doctor, you're changing that up. So can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, you bet. So just to give people some context, there are kind of two streams of naturopathic medicine. So as a whole, we have what we call the green allopaths, which are the naturopathic doctors that are sort of treating on symptoms, giving supplements similarly to the way that the allopathic doctors would be giving pharmaceuticals for symptoms and picture. Now, this isn't to say they're not looking at the whole picture of the person, because I'm sure they are, because that's our fundamental principles of naturopathic medicine. The other side of naturopathic medicine is those individuals looking at the V, so the healing power of the body. And so I do use herbs and homeopathy and lots of different things in my practice, but I strongly believe in the healing power of the body, and that connects with the just basic physics and chemistry. How is an atom made up? And it's mostly energy. So if we can extrapolate that into our being, there are different forces having interplay, and so I'm bringing all of that together in one space.
I dig that because what I like is that it's based in practical. what we can actually understand, because I feel like, and I'm obviously I'm not in the medical field at all, but I feel like one of our plagues or challenges for a lot of years is we were so focused on absolutes, like it's only this way or it doesn't exist, or like I said, have this much time to live. And I've watched people, like people I know personally, who were told they had 2 months to live. Like there's a person I know in particular who wrote 2 books about it. She was told she had 2 months to live, 4th stage cancer, kind of go home and just get your affairs in order. And she thought that's not acceptable to me. So what she learned about is how to turn her body alkaline. And in 2 months, essentially the doctor said it's like a miracle. We don't know what happened. And ultimately she passed away a few years ago, which is, I guess it's sad. It's a sad irony. She passed away with asbestos poisoning in their house they didn't know they had. But she lived 13 years longer than they said she would, became a naturopathic doctor, wrote 2 books. Her name was Susan Mannion MacDonald. One of her books is called Balance, Canadian best-selling book about everything she did in 2 months to cure herself. I mean, I hate using that word because that's a bold word, but the doctors couldn't find it anymore. And when I say this, I don't see her story as a sad story. Looking at the ending, I see that she got 13 years that she was told she wouldn't have. But my point is, imagine if she said, okay, they told me I have 2 months, I only have 2 months. So I think it's important we get away from absolutes. And that's just my take from the outside looking in.
Yeah, 100%, Corey. It's really interesting because I look at kind of the allopathic approach, and I might be wrong, but my understanding is that there's a lot of algorithms. So you have this condition, you do A or B, and then depending on what pathway you head down, you do the other things to figure out what the symptomology is. And in naturopathic school, the school I went to, we didn't get the algorithms. We actually were in situations where it's like, think through what's going on. And time again, I'll be in a situation where I sit there with the patient and I'm like, this doesn't fit what I learned in school, but I'm going to take the situation, look at the organs or systems that are in interplay with each other and see what's happening. And much to my surprise, there's something going on that doesn't fit the traditional medical system or model or things that we had learned in school. And I guess the other piece of it that many people won't know about me, but first couple years in medical school, it was like a constant battle with myself about what was in the textbook and what I felt to be true in my body. And I'm like, this is not how it is. I don't know how it is exactly, but it's not how it's presented in this textbook. And it's not to downplay the science and all that type of stuff that goes behind it, but it is to acknowledge that there's many, many, many layers that we just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I love that because it feels like and we had, I don't know if you guys know each other, but Dr. Elizabeth Hughes, we had on yesterday, and she was talking to this as well. And I love that there's, for lack of, again, a better way of phrasing it, some outliers that, and if people, I should explain that because some people might, what's that word mean? But the Malcolm Gladwell book is what kind of made it famous. But basically the people that are kind of out there doing what nobody else is doing, and they're willing to be sort of on the fringe and make stuff happen. And I love that there's people now that are hacking the medical system, and we, I think it's a delicate tightrope because, of course, you want to acknowledge what has been done and acknowledge the sometimes, like the times that the medical world is 100% necessary to help somebody. We want to acknowledge all the things that do work, but I think assuming any system is perfect is where the downfall begins. And so I love that, when you said this feels right, but this part doesn't. And you were listening to that. You were listening to that intuition and now trying to help open up other people's eyes around that as well. Because again, I think when we stop growing and learning, we die. So, we need to actually have people questioning this rather than us just making assumptions that it's all correct. And so what do you think and feel the connection is, Candice, with the mind, body, spirit? So in other words, whether it's like the spirit side, whether it's like us meditating and yoga and taking time for stillness, the body, whether it's exercising or eating a certain way, and then the mind, of course, feeding our mind. Like, what's the connection to those, and how important is that connection?
That is a big question that I actually contemplate probably almost daily. Because as you know, we have thoughts pervading our mind all the time. And so sometimes, the question is, are those actually our thoughts, or are we picking up the thoughts of other people? And that's very hard to distinguish unless we know ourselves. When it comes to the body, you know, there's, again, something I've been contemplating. How much attention do we pay to the body? Do we pay lots of attention to the body? Because sometimes it's in a real state of suffering. Or do we acknowledge that something's happening in the body, but distance ourselves to what's happening so that the body doesn't run our lives? For example, when someone's tired and they might not want to go to the gym, but they're like, I don't care, you know, the level of I'm tired, I'm still going to go. And I recognize that lightly because I deal with a lot of patients that have fatigue. And sometimes I'm telling them, all you can do is go for a walk around the block because I know their body is too tired to exert themselves because it could be damaging for them. So I say that with some caveat in place. When it comes to the soul, all I can say is it seems to be extremely convoluted. And where I'm coming from this is that we bring in information from our family lineage on both sides. We bring in genetic information that might be in our bodies, wherever that seems to come from. We have karma from whenever that might be that we have no idea. And to some extent, it's irrelevant. And then we have the period of time that we're in the womb with our mom. That's super impactful, very imprintful. We have the birth journey, again, very impactful and can set the stage. And then we have the first 9 months. So if you take all of those things together that I just mentioned, that creates 75% of the person for the experiences of the rest of their life. Yeah.
Now, so I mean, a follow-up to that is, can we change that? Meaning, can we change that makeup if we, like some of those elements we don't like what was imprinted on us? Do we have the ability to change that in your experience?
Yeah, for sure. The way that we go about that, of course, is going to be different for each person because it depends to the level of the extent that, you know, their awareness and their frequency and the amount that they're working on themselves. And again, something I've been contemplating, so I'm sort of sorting through this myself in terms of stuff that I'm working on and understanding the links between family lineage and loyalty, for example, and why it might be difficult for myself to, or someone else, to move beyond what Bob Proctor would call the terror barrier and what might be holding someone back. And if we are approaching that, then how do we move forward? So it gets, and then, I mean, I could even go a little bit deeper and say, you know, there you have your astrological picture on top of that too, which is why I say it's all convoluted because there's so many factors at the interplay. And my caution would be to everyone, it's not necessarily necessary to understand all the stories that are creating the situation that you might be in. There is a level of understanding, but if you go down every single story for the rest of your life, you're not actually going to evolve because then the story captured your energy and you're still stuck. So there is a level of understanding, but from the point of being able to release it, not to go into the trenches and be stuck in it forever, so to speak.
And how about inputs? Like, how big a part do inputs play? So why this is kind of front of mind to me because earlier today I put up a video that I recorded actually in Toronto. I think it was a year and a half ago that I just haven't released. And I recorded an event I was at, and then we took clips and cut them up. But I was planning to submit them to Goalcast, and then anyway, they just sat there doing nothing. So I'm like, I'm going to start submitting these, and I submitted the one today. I call it loosely News Detox. But essentially, I tell the story about how my mother, when she found out that she had cancer, and that was 18 years ago, it's been in remission. But I always said I go quick to that part so people understand it's not a story where I'm saying she passed away or anything. But when she first was diagnosed, the doctor wrote this stuff on a prescription pad, like he wrote something down, folded it up, and handed it to her. She walked out to the car. And I saw her opening it, and then she had this shocked look on her face. And I was expecting, like when I saw it was a prescription thing, I thought, okay, we're gonna have to drive to wherever, the drug mart and buy something. Anyway, she said, that's the strangest thing. I said, what's that? She said, he wrote down on the prescription, like the prescription he gave me, don't read or watch the news. And so she said, I wonder what that's all about. And I said, well, I think I have a clue, but you're gonna have to ask him. So anyway, the sad part is it took her 6 months before she was in with him again. And it's not easy to call the doctor on the phone and ask. So she's like, I need to know She said, I didn't do it, but I need to know why you said that. And he said, well, I noticed that the majority of my patients that basically conquer cancer are ones that don't engage in watching the news. And so she didn't watch it. And I noticed not only with the cancer, but I noticed the difference in her whole demeanor. Like, I'll be the first to tell you, she was very pessimistic before that. And that had changed. And a lot of stuff changed. And so I tell the story in the video, and then I make the case for why we should go on a news detox. And whether that's for a week for you, or whether that means you give yourself 1 day a week, like a cheat day, or whether that means you stop watching it forever, or whether that means you do it for 2 weeks and see if you like it, whatever that means to you, I make the case for it because I believe that if you intake the news all the time and you don't have the ability to deflect it, I think that's going to impact your emotional state and your physical state and your well-being. And I think the backup to that is when a traditional doctor says to my mom, nothing else, didn't give her any other prescriptions, don't watch and read the news. By the way, the only things my mom did differently during that whole time was she stopped watching and reading the news, and I convinced her to drink a green tea a day.
Nice.
By 3 years, the doctor, now I don't know how severe hers was to other people. I'm not trying to compare it, but the doctor said he could barely see it after 3 years. And then after that, they just kept it in order for a number of years. And eventually, I think 2 years ago, they gave her just like the clean bill. It's all gone. What I'm saying is those are the only two changes he made. So that was a long way to say how important is the inputs, the things that we're taking in, and then we let come into us when it relates to our health, whether that's emotional or physical.
Yeah, so 100% important. So every single cell in the body has receptors off of it. And each, what that means is, and where I'm going with this, is that those receptors communicate with all the other cells in your body. So you can imagine, when you walk into a room, there's certain people you want to meet and there's certain people you don't want to meet. And that's for everybody. Doesn't matter who's in the room. And just as an example, that's your body reading the body and energy field of that other person. So you can imagine if you're listening to the news, the radio, TV, etc. Yeah, that news anchor is not right beside you, but you still pick up the emotions associated with that particular story. And so you're 100% right. If you don't have a way to deflect it, now that person is trying to internalize, and depending on the personality of that person, they could be one of those individuals that their mind spins out on the story, in which case their body then is, energy of their body is being consumed by the thoughts of that story. So for over 15 years now, I haven't watched the news or listened to the radio on a regular basis. And I don't have a TV to listen to the news. So I just trust if I need to know something, I'm going to hear about it from someone else. And worst case scenario, I can always go look up something on one of the internet channels if I really need to know something. But, the interesting thing when you say the outputs, I've noticed even on days when I haven't been listening to the news, I'll have anxiety creep into my space. And I'm like, where is that coming from? I wasn't feeling anxious before. And sometimes I can attribute it to something that's going on for me. And sometimes I'm like, this is not my anxiety, which goes back to my earlier kind of comments, is us picking up stuff from other areas that we talked about before.
I love that. And yeah, it's interesting. I can feel the difference in me when I decide to open up and watch a little bit of news. And that could just be the news feed that comes up. And then I see people putting up a new news story I didn't know about. I can feel the difference now because, like yourself, I don't watch or read the news. So then because we're on social media, we're going to see some of the news. So then stuff will happen and it takes me off guard because I'm not used to it anymore. And it could be just, I don't want to say it's simple, but it could be just something like an actor had just passed away that I didn't know and I'm a huge fan of. And it's just like, it hits me harder. But at the same time, to your point, I seem to still find out. I'm still in the know. And whether that's because of somebody in the newsfeed shared it or because somebody in my family said, oh, didn't you hear? This happened. Like a great example is, because the argument I always get is people say, well, you're not going to be informed then. And a great example is now with COVID. So in Little Prince Edward Island, where I'm at when I'm not traveling, we just made a new law came in yesterday, 12 midnight type thing, that now we have to wear masks in every public place. Right. Now, that's a whole other conversation about it because there's so many things about right now COVID that there's a divisiveness and all that stuff. But the part that I struggle with, to be open about, is that in PEI, in Summerside, where I'm at, this many cases since the pandemic started. 0. Yeah. In the whole island, there's been some travel cases, but there's been 0 community cases. And again, on the mask side, that's a whole discussion for probably another day. Everybody has their own preference, but it just seems weird that the whole place is wearing a mask when there's been 0 cases. I understand it's to prevent cases from happening, but it just seems weird. But having said that, that happened yesterday. Now, I didn't hear until yesterday that was the case, but I still heard before the day we were supposed to wear them. And guess what? Worst case scenario, Candice, if I didn't hear, they're going to tell me the first store walking the next day anyway.
Exactly. You're going to know when you open the door.
Yeah, they're going to say, sorry, you have to have a mask. And worst case, they're going to have one for me, or I'm going to have to leave and go get a mask. But the bottom line is, did it suffer for me not knowing that for the week before, or not watching the daily news every day, hoping I'd find that out? I don't think it made a difference either way. Somebody told me.
Exactly.
And actually, I know where it was. I went for an acupuncture appointment. And I said, do I have to wear a mask here? I'm not sure. And I said, and I thought it's probably wise to, because they have so many people coming and going. Sure. But I said, should I wear a mask? And she said, well, up to you today, but tomorrow it's not. And I said, oh, what do you mean? And then she told me. I still found out 24 hours before I had to actually do it. So to that point, I love what you said there is you still get informed. You still find out the stuff anyway.
Well, and to the point about being informed, that's our responsibility as an individual. And so if there's something that's really on someone's mind, whatever that might be, then it's your responsibility to take the time to look that up and search the appropriate resources so that you can be informed if you choose to be.
That's a key word there, is if you choose to be. One of the things that we had Sveta on, which you saw earlier, I'd love to get your take on something she mentioned in passing, and we glossed over it. We didn't jump back in, which we went down a different rabbit hole, so we didn't get a chance to circle back. But something she said that I'm also big on is the whole idea of New Year's resolutions. So just the super 2-second backstory is that I'm not a big fan of setting New Year's resolutions in the extent of, at midnight, I'm going to start doing this. Because my belief is if I have to wait until midnight to do it, I'm probably not going to stick with it. Like if I'm going to start eating better, and my girlfriend and I, we debate this all the time. She'll say, I'm going to start Monday. Well, but what, once you put a timeline on it, then it becomes a whole bigger thing. I'd rather just say, okay, you know what? I decided I'm doing it. I'm going to start now. But the other side is New Year's resolution. I feel there's a heavy burden carried when you say, I'm going to do it starting January 1st, because 90% of all New Year's resolutions fail. And we know that. We know those numbers. So if you know that most people that go to the gym on January 1st are done going by January 15th, it's easier. I hate to say it this way, but it's easier not to do it because the norm is that most people don't anyway. So internally there's this thing, well, most people quit them. And I don't think that's a good way to start. So for me, if I'm going to start something and I'm close to a new year, I'll start it on January 4th. I never ever start anything January 1st anymore. I used to set them and I dropped them. Now I get way more accomplished goals-wise than I ever did when I was setting New Year's resolutions. So that was a long backstory tangent. So what's your take on New Year's resolutions? Because I think this comes back to mindset too.
Yeah, so I have there is psychology behind someone being ready. And, very common topic that people talk about is quitting smoking. If they're not ready 100% in their mind, it's not going to be successful for them because they haven't bought into that idea. So I kind of carry the same philosophy with goal setting. The other thing that always circles in my head when I think about setting a goal is the statement that tomorrow never comes. So why I always say tomorrow or the next day or 2 weeks from now or January 1st, why not do it now like what you're talking about? The other thing I want to share about the New Year's resolution piece is that although December 31st is the calendar year end, the energy of the previous year doesn't actually end until partway through January. So I'm kind of not surprised that there's a lot of people that start something and then quit before the 15th, because that December, that previous year is still wrapping up energetically partway through January. So it might be an experiment to try for February 1st or, something like that, when for sure the energy of the previous year has wrapped up, because now you're carrying, and to your point, the burden, maybe it's the burden of the new goal, or maybe it's actually the burden of the past because you wanted to do it last year and now you're going to try and do it this year. I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation, but it's an interesting thing. But I think the takeaway is to really be ready in your mind and your heart. And you'll know when that time is, and then just choose 100%, not halfway.
Yeah, I so agree. And I feel like it's also something we ignore too about this whole thing, just to finish the New Year's resolution and goals off, is that now there's a whole other can of worms, is that we've always been told it takes 21 days to create a habit. But the guy who actually did that study has come out and said he was misquoted. And he said it starts at 21 days, but it's not fully cemented to 66 days. Now, you can make the argument we chose 21 because it's shorter. We like short. But whichever number you put on that, whether you believe it's 21 or 66, and there's a lot of stuff to back up that the guy said it was 66, but whatever way you believe it, the other part you're not looking at too when you start out this New Year's resolution, and what is it? I think it's like 90 or 85% of the numbers you always hear, quit in 2 weeks. Well, it's not even a habit yet. So of course you're going to quit. So what I always said to people is don't start January 1st, but even regardless of when you start, also have some little mini rewards you give yourself. If you normally quit at 2 weeks, give yourself a reward of a week and a half, a big reward that you want, and that'll push you hopefully another week, and then give yourself another reward and extend that out until the point where now all of a sudden it's natural to do it. It's harder not to do it because it's a habit. I think a lot of people quit before it ever cements itself as a habit, and until it's a habit, it's easy not to do. So that's just another outside take of goal setting.
Exactly. I think the other piece too, especially when we're creating new habits, is if you can have an accountability partner. I'm actually doing an exercise right now, and a colleague of mine has decided we're doing it together. And man, I can tell you there's so many nights where I'm just like, it's 8:30 at night. I'm tired. I don't want to do this. I'm like, but I'm not going to be the one that said I didn't do it. So I'm going to do the exercise. And that has been so helpful. And then also not wanting to let myself down, because I have a certain goal in mind. And at the end of the goal, I have a picture of where I want and where I'm going. So that's the other piece, is that, have that picture in mind. Because if we're not constantly coming back to that picture, it's easy to stop. Why? Like, why not have that piece of chocolate or French fries or potato chips or whatever it might be, and be like, well, that's not going to do anything for my body. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If I did that 5 times this week, it is going to do something to my body.
Yeah, I love that. There's we're doing a vision board up this weekend, actually, my girlfriend and I. But Darren Hardy, who was the publisher of Success Magazine, wrote a book called The Compound Effect. And I always love what you just said about 5 days is going to do that to your body. He gives the example, the compound idea is just like compound interest. And he makes the argument that whatever direction you go with the compounding is going to have a massive effect with little things you do. So he makes the case that if you compare 2 people, one decides they're going to work out, one decides they're not. And then if you take their habits for a year, and each day the habit seems small, but let's say the person not working out sits on the couch every day they have a bag of chips every day, and it's all small things if you take it at the day. But at the end of the year, what he makes the argument is the person that's fit now is got, like, let's say they lost 20 pounds and they gained muscle, but let's say total they lost, let's say 50 pounds, and the other person probably gained 50 pounds. Now they're like 100 pounds apart. So like they didn't just go 50 each. It's like they're now doubly apart because this one compounded this way and this one compounded that way. So I agree with you. Like they seem small by the day, but each one of those little days adds up.
Absolutely, 100%.
100%. Just like smoking. I mean, again, whether a person's ready or not, but it's not the one cigarette you smoked once in your life that does the damage. It's the compound of all the cigarettes that happened since then. So
yes.
Totally get it. So circling around to a different aspect that I wanted to ask you about, I taught you probably heard, because it was right near the end that we were talking to Sveta about something that I always am concerned with, is people wanting to make change in their life, wanting to be better, wanting to be the best version of themselves. But the challenge they run into is there's 1,000 shiny objects a week we could chase to get better. So, and this is even the stuff that's been time tested. Like, even if you just time tested stuff, well, we said like eating organic or whatever that is, food is to you, like food that doesn't have pesticides or whatever. Then there's meditation. Then there's yoga. And I mean, I could go on. There's, I bought this thing called brain tapping that I'm trying now. And it's supposed to actually, when you're meditating, because they worked on the technology, it's supposed to get you deeper in your meditation. But it is still another shiny object. And so, Candice, when I asked this, is because if I wanted, I could try something new every 5 minutes for all year around health and not run out of things to try. So how do we know what's right for us? Because people always say, well, you got to know what's right for you, but how do we get there? Like, how do we choose? So for yourself, when you're trying something new or you hear something and say, I want to see if there's something to that, where do you normally go and how do you recommend people try something new?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so I'm going to start off with something that's probably going to shock people a little bit. The Fool card in tarot. Have a look at it because, you know, as a doctor, I could treat myself, but the doctor who treats himself is the fool. Because I can't look at myself objectively and see all the pieces that are interplaying. I might know that, for example, let's say someone had constipation and you need to use these herbs or this supplement for constipation. But what's the thing causing the constipation? Maybe it's not the gut. Maybe it's actually the a thyroid issue. And so where I would say for someone, you know, to bring someone in that can be objective and look at the whole picture for you, because there are so many things going on with the body, the mind, the spirit, that it is really hard sometimes to see what's going on individually for yourself. The other thing I do when I'm looking at supplements or programs, and I'll use an example, the paleo diet, for example. When it first came out, I was somewhat intrigued and I was also quite skeptical. And I didn't jump on the bandwagon right away. And then a few years after it had been out, and I don't know how many years, studies had come out that saying that people who were doing paleo actually had an increased risk of heart disease. And I was like, oh, that's why I didn't buy into it. And I can say the same thing for keto. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't work, and I'm not saying it's not for everybody. But again, I didn't jump on the bandwagon because something didn't feel right to me about eating a lot of fat in the diet, knowing that fat clogs arteries, and arteries are extremely important for our heart, just as a minor detail. Yeah. But the keto, there's more research coming out now that it extremely disrupts the female hormone cycle. And so when I'm looking at things, oftentimes, if I want to get more information, I'll do research, or I sit with it intuitively and, for lack of better words, feel my way through it, because there is some knowledge, that wasn't a slip, in being able to be sensitive enough to a concept or a practice to know if it's right for you and or others. So, and then how this extrapolates when I'm working with patients is that when a patient comes into my office, and I've had all different kinds of stuff from 2 or 3 supplements to a bag of supplements when someone comes in. And what I can say about that is that the variety of their chief concerns they come in with is sometimes going to play into how many supplements they might need. So sometimes a more complicated case may need more supplements, sometimes it doesn't. But the other thing I want to say about supplements, and this is herbs, homeopathy, nutrition, is that when someone gets too many supplements going, they can actually now start to counterbalance each other. So yes, turmeric is good for, you know, liver, a bunch of other things. But then if you add turmeric and vitamin E and this thing and that thing, now you might put yourself into a scenario where, you know, maybe there's bleeding that shouldn't be there, for example, or the blood's too thin and now you have a bruise that you didn't normally get because you have too many confounding ingredients, and now they're competing. Also, when we get too many ingredients in the body, especially when they're added in as a supplement, not a food source, the body doesn't know what to do with them. So essentially then you're wasting money because the body can't consume it and can't process it. Because sometimes, like when I'm looking at treatment plans, most of the time I can say to someone they can take a supplement twice a day. But sometimes in some of my individuals who are a little bit more sensitive, I actually have to tell them to separate things out because their body wants the supplement. And I check this with muscle testing, which again is an energetic modality, but they can't have the supplements together for whatever reason. And I can't even tell you why. It's just that their body can't manage that. So it's not the shiny syndrome. Yeah, there's lots of things. But what I would say to that is everything's not for everybody. And you really need to hone in on what's right for you. And that partly has to do with your own genetic history and your lifestyle. Because some people are going to need certain antioxidants and some people are going to need different antioxidants.
Yeah, I really love that. And I love the personalized approach. And I mean, it sounds like what that person might want to look at doing if they have a whole whack of shiny objects on the go at once is maybe talking to a naturopath or talking to somebody who can see, is your body really responding well to this? Because here's the other challenge, and I say these things on the outside in as the average person, but nobody wants to kind of go there, I don't think, whenever I bring up these questions. But one of the things that I think is a challenge is whoever you talk to, if they have something that they feel could change your life, when I talk to them, they'll say, yeah, you're taking too much stuff, you're doing too much stuff, but this one here is going to be good for you. But everybody feels theirs is going to be good for you. So everybody's passionate about what they're trying to do to help you. But like you said, as a person who's personalized, is it the right one for me? But it seems like in most cases, there's just a blanket statement. You need to be on this. Yeah, but what my body says I have to be or should be. And I think, like I say, the challenge we all face is it seems like, and a lot of times people just go with who they trust the most or like the most or have built a relationship with. And that person says, you need to be on this supplement. Okay, I like John, so I'll go on this supplement. And so it's a challenge for the average person.
Yeah, yes. And you're 100% right. And, I wish I could say there was an easy way around that. I've been witness to it on many accounts. I get approached by different people for different products all the time. And, oh, well, my product's the best and it does this and it does that. And that's fine. I'm sure there's research behind it. But in my heart, because I always check in with myself, secondarily with my patients, I always check in with my patient first, whatever is right for them. And if that means, and quite frankly, and I'm not being rude about this, but if that means it's Jameson vitamin D and that works for them, I'm happy with that. If it is fish oil from Costco and that's working for them, that's fine. If it's fish oil from my dispensary, that's fine. I don't really care where it comes from, but I do care that their body is able to integrate it. And there are different ways to do that. So I use muscle testing. I check in with my patients to make sure that they're on board with it. Because if they're not, I'll change something out. Because otherwise they're wasting their time and money, which I really don't want them to do. But there are some people will use biofeedback machines to check in on that stuff. I'm pretty confident in my muscle testing. So one of the things I do is I'll test one supplement with the system I'm trying to correct. And then I'll bring all the supplements together and just ask the body, do we have the full treatment program for today? And are these supplements going to work together? And I will pull as I need to out or in if something goes off balance when I pull everything together.
So I feel like this might be the root of the answer, Candice. And I mean, that's a big statement because it's a big question that plagued people ever since there's been magazines, because every magazine's competing saying our health situation is the best. But maybe the answer comes back to something you just said there, which is testing your body to see what it's responding to.
Exactly.
Now, what are the percentage of people are going to do that? Sadly, it's probably going to be remain a small percentage because I hate to say it, but it's so weird. It's easier to go spend the money on all this stuff than to actually test and see if it's working. Even though it
seems easier. It seems easier. So everyone has an intuitive capability, first and foremost. We just aren't taught to explore it. Maybe our parents don't foster that. Maybe they don't know how to. Then sometimes we might have an intuition about something as a child and we're told no, because the adult doesn't know how to explain it to us. But you can always reignite that intuition because every human being has it. And so one of the things I might get my patients to do if they want to kind of test some stuff out that they have at home or if they're grocery shopping, they just grab the supplement. I just have a little pack here, but you can pretend it's a supplement, put it against their body and just check in. Do I feel good with this? Do I not feel good with it? I can pretty much touch multiple different supplements and I get a yes or no in my head within seconds. But that's because I've been practicing it. But anybody can learn. Another way to kind of check with supplements is just to ask your body what a yes or no looks like. Oftentimes a yes, someone will fall forward. If it's a no, they'll fall backwards. So if you hold the supplement at your abdomen and you fall forward, your body is going to be okay with it. If you're moving side to side, then your body is neutral. It may or may not help.
And if it goes backwards, then it's a no.
Yeah, in most cases, you have to double check with your body. A lot of bodies operate that way, but not every body.
Yeah, it all comes back to personalization. And
exactly.
It's interesting you say this. I'll just share this with somebody or share this with people because I think it's a good visual. But a good friend of mine is a Jack Canfield Train the Trainer. So for those that aren't familiar with Jack, he's the co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul. He's been called America's #1 business success coach. And so Jack is more of a business focus. But when you go to his events, and my friend trains on this with people, but when you go to his events, he goes way deeper than business. Like he goes into on the human behavior side, and he goes really deep. And one of the things that he talked about, she talks about this test he does is the Coca-Cola test. I don't know if you ever heard of this.
I might have heard of it, but I'd love to hear it again.
Okay, so what he does is he gets people, and it goes to the point about talking to your body, yes and no. He gets you to do the yes and no too, and people behind you so you don't fall backwards or whatever. But he gets you to hold a can of Coke. And then what he shows is that the strongest man in the world holds the can of Coke. You know, the person that they'll have a guy at the front of the room. He could be the strongest guy in the room. And a little girl can push his arm down if he's holding Coke. But if he's holding something that's really positive, like a positive thing, and I mean, insert what positive thing could be here, but something that's got a lot of good energy. Let's say it was water that's alkalarian. Yeah. And holding the water, you can't push the arm down. So
exactly.
The difference between holding a can of Coke versus holding something positive means the difference of your strength. And what I mean, the argument is your body's telling you basically that the Coke is not good for you.
Exactly, 100%.
But I mean, and so my friend showed me this because because you know when you hear that, when you hear Corey saying that, you're like, yeah, whatever. Now, you can't do it yourself. You can't test it yourself trying to push your own arm down because you'll probably go against it to prove me wrong. But my friend showed me and she said, look, and she goes, you hold the Coke, and she got me to do it in her office, and she pushed my arm down like it was nothing, like I was like a 1-year-old. And then she got me to hold the other, and she actually stood on a chair and tried to push my arm down. It wouldn't go.
Right.
It was instant. I saw it in real time. And so I think that goes to the point about listening to your body. And I guess that's the proof that our body knows.
Right. And it goes back to our earlier conversation where the cells communicate with each other. So the hand holding the water, those cells all communicated down the body and said, yes, we love the water. No, we don't love the Coke.
100%. So I just wanted to add that in because to me, that's a good proof for a person that's because they're sitting there listening to us, but you know, if they've never asked their body a question before, they might not really know how to activate or prove or test that. But if they see that work with a can of Coke, they're going to go, what that doctor was talking about makes sense. Because my body knows the Coke, the difference between the Coke, then it probably knows what vitamin to take.
Exactly. 100%.
I only say that, you know, as we're bringing things close, I'll just add, I was always a skeptic woo-woo. So I would get drugged in, kicking and screaming. And so I always try to talk to people on practical terms because if you said put it next to your body, because I've never asked myself the question, I might not know how my body's going to respond, or I might go, is that just my subconscious telling me that? Or is that, you know, I might guess all that, but you can't disprove the Coke thing because you can't, like, if you can't hold your arm up, no matter how hard you try, there's your proof. And so I think by a person seeing that is the kind of the gateway in, then they can go, well, if that's true, then yes, my body probably knows what vitamin to take. And it becomes like a mini gateway to get there.
Exactly, 100%.
No, so I just wanted to add that in. So Candice, this has been awesome and fantastic, and I thank you so much for being willing to answer the very tough questions. And I think in a lot of eyes that gives reason why a person should reach out to you and learn more about the work you do. And if they are near you, and I guess you can do it online as well, but if they are close to you in the Alberta area, then, you know, they can go see you and see this stuff in action. So where would you normally send people, and what's the normal process if a person wants to reach out to you or connect with you?
Yeah, so I just have a website that's getting developed right now. It's drcandicestaniek.com. I also have a booking site that's drcandice.janeapp.com. A lot of practitioners use that platform. Certainly, phone number is 403-588-3544. Any of those mechanisms are fine to reach out. Does that answer your question, Corey?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm going to tell you, you're number 6. You're the 6th person in going on 7,000 interviews who's given out their phone number as a contact info. So you're in really good company, my friend, because you're in good company. Top of my mind, the last people did it would be Michael E. Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth, Bob Berg, who wrote the Go Giver book series. Tom Ziegler would be Zig Ziglar's son. Those are 3 out of the top of my mind. And then somebody else did the same thing this week. I can try to remember who it was. But anyway, so you and one other person this week. And then, like I say, 5, I think, other guests in history have said, you can contact me by my number. I only say that because I think it's just, you know, it's just good to know that you're in good company, because most people don't give out their numbers these days.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I mean, having a conversation can alleviate some of the questions and concerns. Certainly after we had that first contact, then, I mean, it would be a full assessment in terms of history, that type of stuff. I do incorporate the muscle testing as part of my assessment and an intuitive component that kind of hones in everything together in one spot. So that's kind of what it would look like. I have a 5-step process that I move people through to go through those different things, and they get an individualized treatment program and then a follow-up that kind of circulates.
Now, was I correct? This is the very last question, and then I'll let you run. But was I correct in when I said that it can be done online, or is it something that has to be done in person?
I do both. So there's a couple options there.
Okay, and I was just curious because you mentioned muscle testing. I mean, there's probably a way you.
I can do the muscle testing distantly.
Oh, okay, that was my question.
Which is super cool.
Okay, so there is an option right now. If somebody's listening to us anywhere else in the world other than somewhere in Western Canada, they can still work with you.
Exactly.
100%. Yeah. Awesome, my friend. I appreciate you. Thank you. I salute you. And let's call it a to be continued, because I know we barely scratched the surface.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Candice. And so I'm going to bring our next guest right on. Last but not least, Leanne, I'm so excited to have you here today. And I want to bring you right on to make sure we maximize your time as we finish out our event. So Leanne Francis Bates, how are you doing today?
I am excellent. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm actually, I've had the sweater on all day, so I said I'd make the shift at some point.
Here it is.
There it is. And I noticed I'm diving right in, but I noticed on your bio, one of the things they added in there is comedian.
Oh.
And I talk about stand-up every now and then on this virtual event. So I'm going to get you to tell me a bit about your backstory so we can learn a little bit more. And of course, it doesn't matter how far you go, because we're still going to dive deeper. Okay. But I definitely want to make sure I ask you about stand-up comedy. So I just put that there.
Well, sure. Let's start there. You know what's funny, because it kind of summarizes a bit of my story. Let's start there. So, the funny thing is we all have these perceptions of ourselves. I mean, Candice was just talking about it, right? Like, oh, you're told when you're young, you're not intuitive, like all of this. And I had this idea that I was not funny. And I went and I was getting ready to do a TED Talk, and, they're like, wow, your life story is like so heavy. Like it's like, there's a lot of stuff there. They're like, we need you to make it funny. Like, we need you to lighten it up. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how do you make this funny? And it's always kind of been in the back of my mind. How could I make this funny? Right? Like, how could I take this like really deep, serious trauma and really add some humor to it? And so I really took the bull by the horns on that and signed myself up for a comedy class, thinking that this woman was going to teach me how to be funny. And there I am sitting there the first night, the classes are at night because you do them in a comedy showcase. And she introduces herself, and then she's like, okay, now you have 10 minutes to write like 10 jokes. Like, everyone's like sitting there, oh yeah, this is like so exciting. And she's like, yeah. And she's like, if you think you're funny, you're probably as funny as you think you are, like kind of goading everyone. And I'm just like, what? Like, you're supposed to be teaching me how to be funny right now, not making me write jokes. And so funny because, we actually still have a relationship now, me and that teacher. She's just so amazing and brilliant. And I said that to her. I said, you realize I thought you were going to make me funny. And she's like, what? I was apparently her first student out of thousands that didn't think I was funny coming into it. She's like, usually people think they're really funny, and she kind of has to, knock them down a little bit and then build them back up again. And so she thought I was hilarious. So I basically took, I ended up taking all of my trauma, all of the crap, all of the stuff that had happened that most people is just like, what's going on, and made it into a comedy show.
Wow. So now when you say made it into a comedy show, you mentioned the TED Talk, but do you mean you actually put together like a one-person show? Is that what you mean? Or
yeah, so I put together a full skit.
Okay.
And I got on and I got hired for other shows, and that went on, and then COVID hit. And now all of the comedy is online, and I have to say, I just haven't been feeling it. So yeah, so I've been taking a break, but I'm like, I think I need to get back into writing. So I'm going to do that soon. And yeah.
So I don't know if you know this part of my backstory, because I reveal it randomly on places, but it's not like it's not on my bio really anywhere.
Yeah.
But the reason that I have a kinship to that story is, and I won't go into too far depth because I want us to learn more about you, but I get tricked into performing stand-up comedy one night. I don't know if you heard that. Yeah, so I had, and it's one person show is how it kind of started. Is I wrote a stage play for a Fringe Fest, and then it evolved into being a 5-person play. Nice. Meaning like 5 actors I was directing, but I never wanted to be on the stage. I never wanted to be that guy. So I wrote all the parts without me having to be on stage. One of the actors sprained his ankle, the lead actor, on the way to the show one night. So I had to write extra characters to give him more time to change his costumes, but he still did the show. But I had to write myself parts. And so the problem was I'm the only guy that knows the lines. So the guy who doesn't want to be on stage now is the only guy that can fill in. So I had to force myself to be on stage. I wrote the character so I could have my back to the audience. That's how terrified I was. I put a wig on and I could see the sweat coming down, and everybody else could, like all the actors could. And so we finished the play off, and I was just mortified. But I asked one of the actors, how do you think I can get over this? And he goes, I don't know if this is the answer, dude, but I'm going to do a stand-up workshop at the local university. And so I said, yeah, well, you know what? I don't have to get on a stage. I just can learn more about writing. So I went to the workshop with him, and week 3, we showed up at a comedy club, and it was like a makeshift club. So we turned it into a comedy club. And the guy that got us into the whole thing, like the guy that actually ran the workshop, let us know 5 minutes to showtime. We were the performers. Nice. So none of us had any notice, no material ready, nothing. 15 of the 8 people that signed up that workshop, 8 of the 15 people walked out the front door, literally left, did not perform that night. I always joke, but it is true. I went to the bathroom, tried to find an exit window to get out of there because I didn't want to be the guy that walked out in front of everybody. But I came back out, and there was no exit window. I came back out, and there were 7 left, myself included. And then basically we had to decide who's going to go up first. I always tell people now that the reason I decided to ultimately go up is because I had this weird vision really quick of me being the old guy sitting at the bar going, I was going to try that one night, but I didn't. And I didn't want to live with that regret. So I actually went up first. It was 10 minutes after showtime. We were still debating who's going up first. I launched into what I thought was the best joke I ever told in my life, to dead silence. Which you know probably now is way worse than heckling, is dead silence. I launched into the second joke, dead silence. I joked. I said, I think I saw a tumbleweed go by the stage. But finally, the guy that got us into this mess calls me over, gets me the schmuck in the back of the head. And he said, you idiot, what are you doing out there? We haven't even turned the mic on yet.
No way.
So that was my start in stand-up comedy. And we turned the mic on and told the jokes again, and they bombed again. So I said, I'm the only comedian I know that's actually bombed with the same material twice in 10 minutes. But to finish this whole story is I ended up performing 900 shows over 7 years.
Wow.
So it resonates with me because I went all in on comedy, which for me actually evolved into my speaking career, which was my real why. Nice. And so that's why comedy, when I saw that on your bio, I'm like, I need to dive there. And so having said that, so comedy, this is more recent for you than me. So you actually were doing it right up until COVID.
Yeah. And I always had this sort of little back dream, I have to say, of, it's funny, but I didn't believe I was funny. So it was kind of like this weird, those weird little inclinations. You're like, what is this? And why is it there? But I kind of always had this dream of being able to make people's relationship trauma and all the crap that happens into like a therapeutic comedy show. Like, so actually, and it's so funny because I remember in the middle of the night, many, many years ago, when I still had no confidence to get on stage, I literally woke up and I felt like I downloaded an entire comedy sketch on my work and just didn't think to write it down, didn't think to do anything with it because I'm like, I'm not funny. Like, that's not going to happen. And then when this happened, I was like, that's so interesting. And it was funny because my first teacher, she was like, you could make this into like a therapeutic kind of, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I don't know. It's interesting. We'll see where my career goes in the next 10 or so years, and if I ever make that happen. But
well, I'll circle around to a different route. And what also resonated with me when you said that is that I ended up doing some corporate comedy after a while after doing it. And I was like you, that I didn't think I was funny. And the truth is the audiences weren't helping me believe I was funny either, because I wasn't getting a lot of laughs. Like, it was a solid year before I had 5 minutes of material that worked. Like, Well, I was way behind. But I'll tell you what kept me going is I read an interview with Jerry Seinfeld where he said it took him 2 years before he had 15 minutes of material that worked.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine was a Star Search winner, Tracy McDonald, Canadian Star Search winner, the only, I think, female to ever win Star Search for comedy. So technically the funniest female in the country. And she told me it took her 5 years to get a headline spot at Yuck Yucks. That's what kept pushing me through, just to add that. And I did corporate, and I didn't actually care for corporate comedy. But anyway.
Yeah, you know, it's so true. I don't think people have, like generally, if you haven't actually written comedy, you don't really have an appreciation for the time and effort that it takes. Because you literally go up and you like bomb and you bomb and you bomb and you bomb, and then you get one. And then you bomb and you bomb and you bomb and you bomb. And then you get one, right? And I like look at comedy, you know, stars that do like 60, 90-minute sets. And I mean, they get to do a lot more story than if you're doing a 5-minute and you're just kind of, you know, boom, boom, boom. But so they have that grace there, but still like I watch them with such reverence because I'm like, wow, how many years did it take you to build this much set material that gets that kind of laughs, right? It's definitely a really challenging form of speaking.
Well, in the top ones, like somebody like a George Carlin or what have you, or Richard Pryor, I mean, they would have at one point in their life, they would have had like 10 90-minute sets, you know, like they could, if they wanted, they could go 24-hour comedy blitz, you know, like it's insane. And the idea that, and I mean, I did it too, so it still blows my mind that I could do it. But the idea that as long as you spread it out, you can still memorize all that. Like the longest sets I probably had done have been like maybe an hour and 10. And I still to this day marvel at the fact that I could remember all that because it's so much to remember. And it only takes one. I mean, now when you get to a level like Seinfeld, who's done the same material for 20 years, it's not hard to remember. But because now it's almost like it's like driving a car. But when you're early on and you've just built to that 60 minutes or 70 minutes, like it blows my mind because all it takes is one thing to throw you off. And then how do you get back on track? And it's, but it's weird how, and you probably experienced this, you do. Like, I don't know how you do, but you do. It's easy though in like a 10 or 15 minute set to get back on track because like what I did, people always say, how do you remember all this stuff? And I would remember it by words. So I had this one bit that was called Scurvy Girl. And it was about me going on a blind date and a girl leaning over and saying to me, how would you feel if I told you that I have scurvy? And then there's the whole like that. So I go through the whole thing of scurvy. Isn't that a pirate's disease? And then so my first thought was to go, yar, matey. And you know, and so I go through this whole thing, but the joke is called Scurvy Girl. And so all I had to remember was 5 phrases, and that was it. But because I only had to remember 5 phrases, if somebody threw me off, I could still get back on track because I only have to remember that. Okay, I'm on number 2. I just got to remember what 3 is. But then it's not easy to do that when you have 150 of those to remember. So that's what I marvel at is when I was getting up to longer sets, how it actually started to work.
Yeah.
And the thing about like that Scurvy Girl one, I had like many payoffs within the joke, but the end always got the biggest laugh. But the crappy part was sometimes those payoffs would work and sometimes they wouldn't. Like that scurvy or the pirate thing, I would say, I go, yar, and then I'd say, I realize you can't do that because she started to cry. And sometimes that would get a laugh and sometimes it wouldn't. And it's really not even that funny for a laugh, but it got a laugh sometimes. But it's because I'm in the moment and the way I'm sharing it. But the payoff for people, because it's not really that dirty, is she told me, which is true, by the way, that she knew she had scurvy, or she discovered it because she noticed one of her toenails was colored and it fell off when she touched it. And so the finish of the joke is I had to end the relationship that night because I realized the last thing she touched turned color and fell off. And that's not a risk I'm prepared to take. And so that was the finish of the joke. And it worked every time, by the way. That one worked every time. But the pirate part didn't work every time. And sometimes I talk with the doctor, like what it must have been like for the doctor to go back through the books. Like he'd have to go back to the 1800s to find somebody with scurvy to figure out how to even diagnose this. And then goes out there and say, you sure you just didn't hit it with a hammer? And, you know, stuff like that wouldn't get laughed some night and would other. And as a comic, like the person that's watching comics, you wouldn't realize that we're even pressuring ourselves. Like, why is that getting a laugh tonight? And why is it not? And why is the finish that I just mentioned, why does that always get a laugh? Yeah. Anyway. I'm going back to my comedy right here passionately. So.
Well, you know, like, I mean, you know, it's such an interesting thing because, I mean, I think, you know, if you have people watching this, and I know you have people that love speaking that are like watching you, following. I work with people in relationships and intimacy. And I would say like either of those, if you want to build confidence, like if you're not feeling confident about yourself and you want to go through a process to build confidence in kind of a fun way and take on a new hobby, go start doing comedy. Because you kind of have to build kind of a bit of a thicker skin when you get up on those stages, and your jokes do sometimes bomb. And you're watching someone do comedy, you think like, oh, like it's that much time. But when you're on stage and it's like silence, it feels like forever.
It's funny because in one of my, when I open up I do talks, and that story I told you about the mic not being turned on, that always works in a corporate environment. Like as a speaker, when I share that story, and there's cut levels, I think why it works, because one reason is because the average person's sitting there going, oh my gosh, I can never try comedy. And the first question I ask is, how many people here in the audience today would try stand-up if I got you a gig tonight? So you're already getting them engaged, but that bit always works, meaning like that idea of the mic not being turned on. It's a fully true story, but it always works. But there's elements in there that don't always work. And like you said, it's the average person doesn't really know what goes into being on a comedy stage. So when I start revealing some of the stuff about behind the scenes, it just boggles their mind. And so one of the things I always would say is I'd say, because 30 seconds in comedy is like 190 years in real time. Yeah. And I even started to think that's funny. I would even say it's like George Burns' life in real time, because at one point he's the oldest man in the world, right? Or oldest comedian. And so what I'm saying is that it's funny how most people could understand how long that would be, silence, but until you hear a comic say, you never think of that the comic's on stage. And yeah, honest to goodness, like dead silence feels like forever. Even, by the way, if you're not the comic on the stage. We had a comic one night, a girl, it was her first time. She got on the stage and she told like a joke and got a second half of a joke out, and then she just did one of these and just froze. And it was like, honestly, I bet you it was probably less than a minute. But if you ask anybody who was there that night, it was at least 10 minutes. Anyway, so what happened was she went, oh my gosh, this is awkward. And then she literally ran out of the club. Now, this is the comic on the stage show. And there was it's an amateur show, so there's nobody to run up really. Anyway, so she ran out the door. And then the best part was the whole thing is you heard the door close and you heard the door slam and close after she left. And we're all still sitting up there dumbstruck. Like, what do we do? And then her friend said, Rebecca, you forgot your coat. That was like, and anyway, it was a great night for me as not being on the stage. But at the same time, my point of it, that whole experience felt like 4 or 5 days. And we weren't even on the stage. So, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. There's her whole show right there.
Yeah. Well, the best part of the whole story, Leanne, is she came back the next week and performed. That's the most inspiring thing ever. Somebody that could bomb that epically. And it wasn't even really she bombed. I don't know if her material would have worked. She never finished it. But she came back and said, I know if any of you were here last week, I know you saw what happened. I am finishing tonight. And she got a standing ovation, by the way, before she started.
Bravo for her.
Anyway, so I know that was a long tangent, but that's what real time feels like. Like it's forever, and it doesn't matter if it's you on the stage or not. So you're right. I think whether it's Toastmasters or you're willing to get on the comedy stage, those are the training grounds. If you want to be a better communicator, I mean, there's nothing better. I learned more in stand-up comedy about communication than anywhere else. Yeah, you're probably the same. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've learned all the way down, right? I mean, I do relationships and intimacy, so. I learned through bombing in life first, like completely failing. And then, and not being able to communicate. Like, I mean, I used to be like this terrified human being. Like I was terrified of people. Right. So, I really wasn't a good communicator. And then even when I thought I was, then I just realized that I was like, relying on like all sorts of harsh types of sarcasm that I had heard in my family that I thought was funny, that like other people did not think was funny. Totally inefficient ways of communicating and, filled with expectations and, oh man, I mean, you want to talk about all the bad types of communication? I've done them all, and then really learning to be more vulnerable, learning to speak from my heart, just learning to be more connected with what was coming through me and through my body at the time, and then learning actual communication techniques, right? And so I kind of came at it from all of that. And the funny thing is, I think all of that kind of got rid of some of my funny a little bit, because I was scared when I was younger of my sarcasm and how that came off, right? And, yet in the spiritual community, a lot of people have that opinion, right? Too, that sarcasm is like, in fact, a non-spiritual, it's like for like lower vibrational people. So there's all those biases, and I was doing spiritual teaching, and I kind of think I my pendulum kind of went like this, right? So when I, decided to go into it, it was like evening my pendulum back out. Although I went really far with my comedy. We talked about some people they've seen it. They're like, whoa, I had some guy on YouTube and he's like, I don't want to lose my virginity now.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know what the context of that joke is, but I can probably guess, or the material, but I get it. I get totally. Now I'm gonna have to find that on YouTube and watch it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, so in my work, I've really put myself fully in, and I've just explored all types of intimacy and relationships, even if I didn't think it was a good fit, because I wanted to understand where people were coming from, what was going on. And so that little piece I was talking about was a piece where, I don't talk about it a lot, except really when I do comedy and with my clients. But for a time period, I really wanted to understand the kink community and what was going on with intimacy in the kink community. And so I explored it and all of this, and it's like, hey, how can I do this in like a really conscious way that would actually give tons of tools to people from all types of backgrounds versus just having it really contained in this smaller community? Because I found that with Tantra, that there's so many things that we can provide, we can take here and we can utilize to this level to really create relationships beyond what people normally expect to get from them. And so I thought the same thing with kink. And so it's like, okay, how do I figure this out consciously? And finally I was like, okay, the only way I'm really going to truly figure this out and really get out of my comfort zone. So I didn't feel like a dominant person, being raised a woman, all of this. I mean, people are like, oh, you're dominant, Leanne, now. But that's not how I felt. I was like, oh, I'm very submissive, blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, I'm going to become a dom for like at least 6 months and to see how this goes.
Wow.
But I'm only going to do it according to my rules, according to my values, and have really stringent boundaries on this so that it's a conscious, healing environment. And I'm not re-traumatizing anyone. And guess what? That's what I did. So I talk a little, so I kind of make fun of that whole journey and, how I didn't need, whips and all these fancy things. And, instead, I used, household items, and, it's kind of an everyday Martha Stewart. And
well, I mean, it's wild how the parts of our life, for example, my girlfriend and I, had decided to have children, which I never planned to have, but I was like, Jesus, there's so much material. How can you not have children? But I mean, it was like, as a comic now, you're always looking for, and like I said, I've been retired for a long time, but even now, I'm still always looking for that next great piece of material. I still text myself, something happens, I'm like, this would be great when I ever get back on the stage. Anyway, but having said that, one thing I want to touch on, and then I want to circle to the side of the side of your life that's like the guide and being a little bit more woo than comedy. One thing that you touched on there is
comedy and domination.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you get a good point. Is that for those that want to be speakers, what we've been covering here, I think every bit of that translates to a speaking stage, a corporate stage, except for maybe the dominatrix stuff. But the comedy stuff, one thing that you said that I think is important for people, whether they're writing, and this is, our next event is going to be Amplify Your Message, where we talk about writing, speaking, and podcasting. And for people that tune in then, or influencers tuning in now, this is something I think a lot of people gloss over, but you learn it on a stand-up stage. Like I said, there's so many things you learn there, but you said a key thing. The joke that works great for your family at home doesn't necessarily translate to a comedy stage. And so I discovered that the hard way. I had this, I went out with my cousin for a stag party, and he did all these hilarious things because he's my cousin on the way home. And when I told those on the stage, it's like, well, like, and almost like they're not laughing. So I'm like, but Mike has this going on, but Mike has this on his leg. Like they don't know Mike. So the story isn't funny for them. And so I didn't get that. And eventually that joke got turned down into about 20 seconds. And it was like when I didn't know any better. So when I first brought on stage, it was like 9 minutes. And so now I think if I was watching it, 9 agonizing minutes. And I just, why are they not laughing at this? But my point is that if you're writing, think about that when you're writing. People don't know who Mike is. So it still doesn't work on the written page when you're trying to say, you had to be there. So funny. Well, if I had to be there, then you can't tell it to me. You need to either bring me there or leave it there. Yeah. And the same with speaking. If you're on a stage, the stuff that works for your family probably won't carry over the same way, even on a speaking stage. So I think that's a lesson for people. I just didn't want to ignore that because I know a lot of people follow me for how to get on a stage, how to speak, how to crush it. And the things we've been talking about today, a lot of those lessons can be learned. There's a lot of lessons in between what we're sharing that can be learned that you can bring to a stage. Even just me not having the mic turned on, there's a lesson there of when you go out to a corporate gig, at least check the mic, make sure it's on. But anyway, I digress.
So true.
But I want to get there.
What you're saying though also applies to relationships, because I see it happening in relationships too, where people are, trying to connect with someone and they're telling these stories that yes, you would have to be there for, so they're on their first date and they're like, like, what is this? Like, what's going on? Like, this person doesn't seem interested. They don't seem clear. And it's because the person's sitting there like, like, this is interesting. Not really understand, right? So we do. I mean, whether you're on the stage or you're meeting someone in person or you're developing an office in your relationship, you're developing an office in your relationship. You're developing a relationship in your office. From the bedroom to the boardroom, yes. We need to be able to communicate effectively to create great relationships. And it doesn't actually take much. I think that's the really most interesting, fascinating thing that I've found about communication is that for a lot of people, whether it's on the stage or person to person, it can seem like a very foreboding skill to learn. And yet, really when you get down to the basics and you get vulnerable with yourself and you just start experimenting and exploring and trying things and seeing how they land with people, whether you're on the stage or you're in person, you just start to communicate in a way that is more, open, more clear, and attracts more people to you too, right? So,
absolutely. Well, and I wanted to, not to interject, I was just going to say that I wanted to also circle back to the guide part, because even though, during this conversation, I haven't seen, and I always look for this because this is not my first interview, so I'm always looking for this. I'm looking for the clear through line as to how you married or got into, the person that did comedy, the person that was a dom, to then the person that is also in the healing world and in the spiritual world as well, being a guide. So how did you find that part of your life?
Well, so even the word guide itself should give you kind of an indication. So, a lot of people are like, oh, you're actually an expert, Leanne. Why? Like, I get this feedback all the time. Like, Leanne, you should be calling yourself an expert. And I'm like, you know what? I don't like the word expert. To me, the word expert is like, I'm going to tell you what you should be doing, and I'm going to be your authority. By the way, my business name is the Intimacy Authority, and that is kind of what people think, right? And really what my business is about is helping guide you into becoming your own authority. I want people to be their own authority. So hence calling myself a guide in the first place. I'm not here to tell you how to make your relationships work. We're going to work together and really figure out what makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled, what makes the people that you want to be in a relationship fulfilled. And then how do we create something just absolutely beautiful and magnificent and dynamic that works for all of you? Because what your relationship looks like in perfection, Corey, is probably not what mine looks like, and is not what, the person down the street looks like. And to all try and stick ourselves in these little boxes just creates like a lot of havoc, a lot of, unmet expectations, and a lot of, divorces, unfulfilling dating scenarios. So how did I get into this? So, and how did I guess, the spiritual thing. So I think I was actually quite spiritual from a young age, and I just didn't know it. I was born into a very trauma-filled, unhealthy, pattern-filled house, to say the least. I had, they said my brain was shattered before I was 4. My neck and my back was dislocated in 2 places because of the abuse. It took me years to unravel all the actual physical trauma in my body as an adult. I had like weird curvatures in my spine, major, pain, all of that. So I did not have the funnest childhood. And it wasn't exactly one of those childhoods where like, oh, here you're, practice your gifts, Leanne, and all of this. And I felt like the world was very overwhelming. Both because of the abuse I was going through, because I had a sense of what people were feeling and experiencing, yet I saw them putting on different covers. It can be very confusing when you're a child and you're like watching an adult. And I've worked with a lot of children because I've worked with families over the years in my work. And it's very confusing for a lot of children to watch the adults in their life say one thing and when they can sense another behind it. They're like, oh, like mom and dad, like they say they're fine, but like I think dad's actually really sad. And I think like mom's actually really angry. And I think, right. And so it was interesting because I always had a really just profound feeling of what was going on with people in the background. And all of that kind of just kept growing and growing. And then around the age of 11, I finally was like, okay, like, I really want to figure out connection. I really want to figure out relationships. I think that we could so fundamentally be connected in ways that we're not even exploring at this point. And I'm going to like research people's brains and get a psychology degree. And like, I'm going to be a writer and I'm going to change the world in politics. That was like my dream at 11. And I went and I told my mom and she was just like, no, like you're not doing any of that. That's like the devil's work, like quote unquote. The stuff that you're talking about is completely like, this is not okay. Not. And I mean, I was like, no, like we're so like, I have this feeling like we're so much more interconnected. There's so much more to our relationships than we realize. And look, mom, I went to the library, found these like quantum physics books and it's like, look, it's there. No. And on top of it, my dad, my adoptive dad at the time is a atheist biochemist.
Wow.
So let's just say neither of them were in my camp. It was like human relationships, no. And then the woo-woo, definitely no. And yet when I look back, I mean, that's what my work is. It's intimacy. It's helping people build fulfilling relationships from the inside out through intimacy on the mental, emotional, spiritual, sexual, and physical realms. Like that was it. I just didn't know how to articulate it back then. So it's funny because I clearly knew what I wanted to do, and yet I shut it all down in that moment. I was just, I wanted to people please. I mean, I had all of these standing, really unhealthy relationship patterns from my family. And it was like, I'll do what you want instead. So I ended up going to business school. I went to business school, but on the side, I was a doula. So I helped women and couples bring their children into this world, which, you've had a baby. Let me tell you all about relationships. I had no idea the skills that I would be gaining and understanding about couples and about their sexuality and their connection and all of that through that work. And I did that for 20 years on the side. I also practiced Tantra because I had all of my own sexual trauma. Those unhealthy child patterns ended up like turning into several rapes and things like this as I went into my teenage years and abusive relationships. And I really wanted to untangle that. So about age 18, 19, I got a Margaret and Ann book off the shelf. And I mean, you couldn't practice Tantra in Western Canada, like anywhere that I really knew about at that point. It was a long, long time ago. And so I started learning from books. And then as I could, I reached out and found people that could actually teach me and started doing all that. And then started actually using a lot of the breath work exercises and things like that with my clients that were having babies. Because I saw it was like, wow, like when a woman is like actually in birth and she's pregnant, there's like a lot of the same energy patterns as when she's orgasming. And actually, isn't this fast? I wonder if I, have her do this while she's in labor, what this will do. And then they're like, oh my gosh, like all the pain just went away. It was like, oh, this is so interesting, right? So it was kind of interesting. I kind of had all this learning that I was doing. And then I was in the corporate world. And we're talking like highly masculine. I was too young to be in my field. Women weren't supposed to be in my field. Everybody thought I must have been sleeping my way to the top. And so I really had to fundamentally figure out relationships on a whole nother level there. I mean, I had to figure out how to stand amongst men that didn't want a woman in the room. And if they did, it was because they were, planning on sleeping with me after they did business with me. And then how to navigate all the women in my office too, that were like, had this big rumor mill going on about like why I was successful at my particular age and with my gender and why they weren't. So you learn a lot about projections and a lot about all this different stuff, right? And my whole job in the corporate world was relationship building. So it was like going out, building the relationships, making them successful so that there could be collaborations and things done between the parties. And then to maintain those relationships when things didn't work out and lots of money was lost and things like this. So, it's so fascinating sometimes when we look back and then we land in our sort of our sweet spot in our career and we're like, wow, look at all the things that led up to this. But yeah, what ended up happening to make the real end shift was I ended up with a full PTSD breakdown. Didn't realize I had complex PTSD since I was younger at that point, and wasn't happy, had tons of money, had what looked like the perfect marriage, this whole story, like looked like perfection from the outside, from the inside, clearly it was not. And I just was like, what would make me happy? And I really dove into a lot of spirituality at that point and worked with spiritual mentors. And that's how I started my business. I was the unconditional love lady. I'm like, I want to teach people how to unconditionally love themselves, how to get, past all of this crap in their past and really come into wholeness in who they are. And then come into wholeness in their relationships in terms of unconditional love as well, and truly understand the power of this. And I did spiritual keynotes, and I was known like in the spiritual world. And, yet I had so many clients coming in with sexuality problems. And like, it seemed like it was like the elephant in the room with every single client. It was like relationship stuff, sexuality stuff, right? Relationship with themselves and others. And finally, one day, I just meditated really for a long period of time. And I just said, you know what, I just don't know if I'm still supposed to be the unconditional love lady. Tell me what's going on. And was like, wait, I was like, okay. So I meditated the next day. I did this for about 2 months. And then I got a call from 3 people in the transformation industry, all making millions and millions of dollars, teaching transformation in relationships. And, I always say, when I hear things in 3, I listen 100%, even if it seems weird. And all 3 of them said, I don't know why I'm calling you. How are you doing? And I was like, good. And I had just met them all through my work at one point or another, and then had ended up helping them kind of like over a glass of wine, or a glass of tea, or, something like that. It was like informal sessions with all of them. And they all said, you know what you do that's so unique? And I was like, no. They're like, you've taught me to look at relationships in a way I never have before. And you've completely changed the relationship I have with my significant other. And that's what you do. I was like, really? But I heard it in 3s that week, 3 in the same week. So I was like, okay, I guess this is my thing. So that's where I got, that's how I'm here today.
Wow. That's wow. That's amazing. I mean, like you said, it's Steve Jobs, I think, calls it joining up your dots, when you can look back at all the dots that had to happen for you to be the intimacy expert today. Yeah. And so I find that fascinating. And so we're not there yet, but as we start to wind down, I'd like to get your take on why, based on what you've seen, why relationships break down and what seems to help relationships succeed. And I know you covered some of this, but just kind of like not the do's and don'ts, because I know it's not as simple as that, but I just mean, what do you see that's a common thread when they do work and when they don't, I guess?
So I would say like the most common thread that I see with the average person, it kind of depends on how much personal development work you've already done. I really have to say, like, the more kind of aware you are of yourself and the more you've done, the the challenges get different. But I would say the most common is that people are going into relationships not really being who they are. They're just not really fully authentic with themselves or with the person they're with. And I see it a lot. You know, people are like, well, how is it that, you know, like we had this relationship and then for 5 years and then all of a sudden we got married and like, boom. Well, it's like all of a sudden they got married and they're like, oh, this person's with me. I'm not going to lose them now. Now I'm just going to like do all these things that I've kind of been hiding and I kind of haven't normally done before. And maybe I'm not going to put the same effort in. And, and their partner's like, oh my gosh, like what's going on here? And they're doing the same thing. Right. And you kind of have this breakdown. So people, you know, being authentically who you are, I mean, that's your greatest filter in the entire world. People are going to absolutely love and adore you for who you are. And if they don't, fabulous. Let them filter out. Those aren't your people. We're not meant to have everybody love and like us. That's just not how it works. In fact, it would be really weird if everybody did. And you're probably, you know, wearing some masks. So being who you actually authentically are is like a really important thing. And in that, having an awareness and an understanding of your needs, your wants, your boundaries, where you want to grow, that kind of thing. And then, you know, coming into a relationship with someone that has similar values and is also being who they are. Because at the end of the day, our relationships make and break on our values. You know, if you have very separate values, when, you know, things get really tough, you're both going to want to go opposite directions. You're not going to want to come back to the same values. And when we have the same shared values, we can really solve problems at a much bigger, better level. So having those shared values is really important, having an awareness of yourself. And then the last little piece is, you know, there's this saying like, don't get into a relationship to change someone, which I find incredibly ironic because yes, you're not going to be able to get into a relationship to change someone, but that person will change. In fact, that's the only constant I can give you in a relationship is change. It will change. I mean, you have kids, your kids are continually changing. You're like, I love this phase. I hate this phase. I'm like, don't worry. The phase will end. Whether you love it or hate it, it's going to shift, right? And it same happens in a relationship with people. We are constantly changing and evolving. And if one person even isn't in the moment, the other person is. And so you have to have this foundation of shared values, of really being able to be who you are and share what your needs and wants and desires and boundaries are continuously with someone to make a relationship work. And then the last little kind of things that I add in, because, you know, what I've just said could be fabulous, but very boring, is curiosity and playfulness. People get too over serious, so over serious. I've suffered from it. Some days I suffer from it. We suffer from it as a society, getting on our little hamster wheel, going around and around and around. And our relationships start to fizzle out because we don't have that playfulness. We're not exploring anymore. We're not taking adventures with each other mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually. Playfulness. You know, that's how kids learn and grow. It's how they have fun in the world. And we as adults could really take a piece from that and continue that energy in ourselves and our relationships. And if you do those things, I just like really oversimplified things. But if you do those things, it will definitely help you have much more fulfilling relationships.
I love it. And, you know, when you talk about the playfulness and adventurous, one of the things we do as a family, so this is all of us, not just my girlfriend and I, but we do either a Friday or a Sunday night dance party. And you wouldn't believe the difference that makes in our energy and how we feel. It also, our son, like we have a 3-month-old and a 3.5-year-old, and the 3-month-old, he's just going along for the ride. But the 3-month-old going along for the ride, but the 3.5-year-old, it just changes everything in his demeanor. Like his energy's higher and he gets excited. I mean, so much so that the downside is he wants to have like every night dance party. Which would be possible and fine, but like he wants to have it at the most inconvenient times. But the point is that it, as a whole unit, it brings us together. Now, I can't speak for the 3-month-old because I don't know if he knows the war's over. But I mean, the rest of us, and we just like my 3.5-year-old actually like shakes the 3-month-old bed, and so we'll do the video every now and then, like iPad video, and like the 3-month-old is just like people are just shaking him, and like he doesn't know what he's doing, right? But I mean, he's still getting that positive energy from the family, and then as he gets older and sees the videos, it'll be either really cool or it'll be blackmail with his girlfriend, whatever. Or person he's with, but it's still like the whole family gets to take part.
It's, I love what you're saying. It's funny, in our household, we do some similar things. So in the morning, which I recommend to a lot of people, everyone's getting ready. I put on some like good music. I have like, it's called a mood boost playlist, and we just put it on in the morning, and then we're all kind of dancing around, getting ready, and it's super nice. And then we have a dance party here too. Not every week, but I have this little like portable disco ball.
That's awesome.
And my kid will take it out. My whole office turns into a disco place. And then, it like pumps to like the music, and yeah, it's super fun. And it's finding those little things that work, right? Maybe it's a disco party. Maybe it's like you like going barefoot hiking for 3 hours. Oh, like I love that. Whatever it is, like, I once in a while I get in my latex so I can go out in some latex because like I love wearing latex. I have to do it once a year.
Absolutely. It's funny because I don't know how this compares in any way, shape, or form, but I talked yesterday about how one of my friends, her father's a 77-year-old alkalarian, so he eats only alkalarian foods, and so once a year he has on his birthday steak and a piece of cake, I think it is. That's like once a year, and so it's funny. I don't know why it jumped into my head. You go out in latex once a year, and he eats a steak and cake. I don't know why the two intercede, but your once a year thing is definitely different than his.
But it's kind of like these opposites, which is funny because when we're really truly ourselves, I think we find that we have all these dynamics within ourselves, right? Because people, I know, I get feedback from people in my life. They're like, it's so confusing. Like you do this shamanic work, and like I have huge garden, like huge garden in my back. You'd never believe it. I ferment my foods. I make like my own bread. I walk barefoot for like 5 hours in the forest. I mean, I forage. And then people are like, and then they see me with latex and like leather pants and like, animal prints and red lipstick. And they're like, and then you teach like Tantra and you do like some kink and then you teach communication and like, what? And then you're like a mom and you homeschool. And they're like, how does this fit together? And it does.
And I was going to say, and it just does.
And it just does, because we are all really dynamic human beings. Then when we can really embrace that in ourselves, and then we can embrace it in another human being, oh my gosh, life becomes a lot more fun.
100%. So, Leanne, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to call it a to be continued because I feel like we barely scratched the surface as well. But the most important question is maybe the final one, which is for those that have been listening, really dig everything you've been talking about. Would love to figure out either just to reach out and connect or figure out how they can work with you down the road. Is there a hub or a place that you normally send people to learn more about you?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. I mean, you can go to leanne.love, so LEE-ANN. Okay, I have an unusual name, .love. You can go there, get my intimacy map, and explore your own intimacy strengths and opportunities. So that's one way that you might want to. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, The Intimacy Authority, Leanne Francis Bates. I come up very clearly and easily, especially when you spell it with the LEE-ANN. It's just not super common. Follow me there. I have lots of videos, tips, stuff that I'm putting on there all the time. If you are on Facebook, feel free to send me a message. I have a group there. It's like just all like a give for me. I have a group that's just my heart give. And it's beautiful. We have an amazing community there. I'll add you to the group. And you can, wade in as much as you want. Some people like to, watch me for a few years before they get more intimate with me. Some people just come right away. And if you come right away, you can email me at support@leanne.love. apparently you're giving out phone numbers, so that's cool. You can text me if you want to. I don't answer my phone all the time because part of my relationship boundaries is keeping this thing off when there's other important things. So 604-362-3464. I'm there too. Just connect. I'm here. Like, I'm available. I do have boundaries around it. So I will, you'll never bother me because I'll let you know when I'm available. And I do mini sessions with people so that they can just get a feel for where their opportunities are in their relationships and my work, because I do work so much with a variety of tools. I find it's really helpful for people, and it's really intimate, vulnerable work, right? And I think people should have an opportunity to get to know me before they sign up and commit. So I do that for people. So.
Awesome. Well, that's perfect. Lots of different ways to reach out to Leanne. I went and grabbed the Leanne.love website and put the link here in Facebook. I will tell you too, Leanne, we're on live now, of course, but we're in an on-demand world. So over the next couple of days, we might see comments or questions as people are watching the replay. So I'll just let you know if I see something that you may not, I'll tag you in, because this actually, if somebody's seeing it one place, they might think it's the only place it's at, but it's actually, this actual stream is on about 8 Facebook groups, and it's also on LinkedIn Live. It's on YouTube. So in other words, I'm going to be most likely to see if somebody tags you in or messages or asks, hey, I had a question for Leanne, and doesn't tag you in. If I see any of that, I'll make sure to tag you or let you know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just hop right on and answer it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Well, Leanne, this is a perfect fitting finish to today, talking about stand-up comedy. This totally changed my energy level. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. I salute you. And again, I'll follow it to be continued.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. So amazing stuff, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to wind down really quickly. We're only a couple minutes over time. Everything I think this week, not to jinx myself right now, went off pretty much without a big hitch. So I thank you so much for joining in. Elise, my co-host, had to jump off earlier, but I know she's been out there listening as well in between. So I thank you, Elise, for joining me this week as usual. We do have, I think I mentioned, but we do have the next one coming up the week of January 18th. So a bit of a break between, but of course we get the holidays coming up. So mid-January is when we're back again for this event. Also, as a side note, maybe I'll put this in the comments as well for those watching now or replay, amplifyyourmessages.com. That website, let's bring it up on the screen here. That website is the website where you can find out about the upcoming event we have that takes place starting November 30th to December 4th. So we have a week, next week, no events, but the following week, we have a full week of Amplify Your Message style event, which is basically for those that want to learn more about podcasting, speaking, writing, and or influencing. We have some really cool speakers joining us then, so we will be back really, really soon. If you're watching this in the replay, feel free to share it. If you want to know more about Blue Talks, that's easy. It's blue, like you see at the top of the screen there, blue, and then talks. So there's no E, but bluetalks.com. That way you can learn all about Blue Talks. We talked about giveaways. So if you comment, you're going to go in a draw, which I'll probably do in about a week's time, for one of 5 copies of this book, one of 3 copies of the Blue Talks book, or one of 3 copies of Elise's book, I Already Am, or a copy of Frankie Picasso's book, Midlife Mojo. So we're going to draw for 12 books. So feel free to join us there. One last thing before I let everybody run is that I mentioned the Amplify Your Messages event, and I'm just going to take a peek so I can share this with you guys. But as far as who's going to be involved, who's going to be speaking at the upcoming event that I mentioned, we have some really cool speakers coming up. So we have Joseph Michelli, and Joseph is really cool background and story. He writes the books, like the Ritz-Carlton book, the book that was written about them, the Starbucks book that talked about the Starbucks experience. He writes those type of books. And so he's going to be joining us. And then we also have Shay Rowbottom, who you guys may know. She's a big-time LinkedIn influencer. So we have Shay Rowbottom coming up as well. Who else do we have? We have Kent Speakman, who is the creator of, you may have heard of Connect TV, and it's actually going to be one of the places where we're going to be streaming in the future as well. So Ken Speakman's with Connect TV. He's the founder. He's going to be joining us as well during the event. And let's see if I can tell you a couple more that we have coming up. I'm just actually checking out the page here to make sure I cover everybody myself. We also have Bobby Buford, who's a coach, a high-level coach, does a lot of stuff in the fitness world as well. And Jolie Glassman, who is she's actually the founder of a fitness group, and she's got this really amazing story that you simply have to hear about her launching a fitness brand, and she's a boxer, and she's just a really cool story. And then we have Ali Reeves, who's a Instagram influencer and top podcaster. Chandler Bolt, who you guys may know, he's the guy that focuses on helping people crush it in the author sphere, and he's one of the most well-known people in that side of the world. So as you can see, we have a big list of cool influencers coming up. I think you guys are going to be blown away by some of the people that show up and present and bring their A game. And so I can't wait to see you there. That was a long pitch for the upcoming Amplify Your Messages event, so feel free to join us there. In the interim, though, again, put some comments in the comments if you're watching in the replay so you get a chance to win one of the books. Feel free to check out any of the guests that we've had on, and you can find that stuff in the links. You can scroll back and check out the links, what people are saying in the comments. Feel free to comment and include me, and I'll make sure to answer any questions you have. And then, like I say, visit bluetalks.com. And finally, amplifyyourmessages.com if you want to know more about the upcoming Blue Talks Amplify Your Message event. Having said that, we're right down to the last minute, finishing at 2:30 Eastern. So I thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is always my pleasure to do this, and you give us a purpose. I appreciate you supporting Blue Talks. It has become at least as much as I hoped it would, and I think a little bit more. We are doing very well on the YouTube channel. I think I've mentioned in the past we're up to close to 60,000 views. I was almost going to say 60 billion, which is like a mix between 1,000 and million. 60,000 views in the matter of, I think, 6 weeks roughly, so roughly 10,000 views a week. I'm really pumped about that. The podcast has been on the charts more on than off. The Blue Talks book series, the one I showed you, has been doing well, still on the charts. It's been out, I think, about 2 months now. And then the virtual event, you guys are giving us a purpose here as well. So all things Blue Talks going really well. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving me a purpose. If you want to know more about how you can be featured on a Blue Talk stage, reach out to me directly, let me know. And otherwise than that, you guys have a magical rest of your weekend. And I guess it's Thanksgiving coming up in the US, so have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you again. Have a great one, and I will see you next time.